TV, was it 30 years? He was always here for us, and it was a very sad time. I'd like to have a little moment of silence to remember Dave Bartlett and all he's done for us. Thank you, and our prayers and thoughts are with the Bartlett family. There are any other announcements? Jay?
Just a couple, Madam Chairman. One is that the DPW will be doing paving tomorrow at 9 a.m., closing down the eastbound lane of Bliss Road from Grassy Gutter to Bliss Court and deterring the traffic at that point, back about 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Also, just a note of the outstanding job done by the DPW, the fire, and the police in the storm from October 16th through the 18th. Great job by all. Thank you.
Maria, I was notified today that the Scantigui Regional Health Group, which we're a participant in, got a gold level award from Health New England for its wellness program.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, and is Health New England the one who's doing the telemedicine too?
I think it's completely separate from Health New England or Blue Cross Blue Shield. I think it's a blanket over all of them, basically.
Oh, wow, because that's a wonderful program they're doing. Thank you. Any select board comments? No? We usually have resident comments now, but I think there was confusion thinking we're starting at 7, so I'm going to hold off the resident comments till 7. And so why don't we move right ahead to the interim town manager's report?
Sure, absolutely. A couple of things. One is with regards to the LEDs, and Selectman Gould or Strange can update further. We are moving forward with regards to that project. There is an auditor in town right now taking a look at the lights. He's particularly focused on the LED decorative lights, which we have about 900 close to. We have about almost 600 of the traditional Cobra heads. That audit is expected to take a couple of weeks. We're in the process of reviewing the contract right now and finalizing that hopefully by Wednesday with Tanco, which would be the serve as our project manager, also the design with regards to the LED lights, preparing the town for submitting a solicitation through the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission for a minimum the replacement of the Cobra heads and hopefully some of the also the decorative lights, depending on what can be garnered at that point. We're also in the process of finishing up, moving forward with regards to Eversource relative to the purchase of the lights there. So the project, I think, is continuing on. We did have a meeting of department personnel also to meet the auditor last week. We're in the process also through purchasing and procurement of moving forward to solicit a vendor to provide maintenance of the streetlights once the sale is made with Eversource. I don't know if there's any other comments on that. The next item I just would like to point out, we are moving forward on the landfill closure. There's a meeting scheduled for Wednesday with the low bidder, and we will be working our way from that point. DEP has given the town hoping to a requirement of making substantial progress by November 22nd. We will be moving forward for progress, and we should hope to be in a acting position at that point. I'm not sure how far we'll get on that, but we certainly will make all strides to get this project done. This is phase 1 of the project as required by the state DEP. It's in conformance to that. The entity who is our engineer on this is Ty and Bond. So after Wednesday, our expectation is we will be able to move forward, authorize the vendor to go forward, purchase the cap, and be able to make substantial progress on that, hopefully before weather makes it too difficult to do anything more. You will have on your agenda tonight the approval of the library agreement. We did spend some time internally with looking at that as you requested, and we've seen the final draft of it, and from an administration standpoint, we have no objection to the agreement that is there. Last item I just would like to mention is the Human Resource Director, myself, and the DPW Director met with the Maya representative last week to discuss the requirement, the new state regulations relative to basically implementing OSHA, and discuss the need and of developing policies and procedures as well as a safety audit, and ask what Maya might be able to do for us to assist. So we're in the process of doing some work on that right now, and I think we found that very helpful. That is very much something that needs to be developed as a culture of a workplace culture of safety. There's a variety of things that transcend merely the Department of Public Works to all departments. So that is an item that, as you move forward, is something you'll really want to stay focused on, and perhaps even in the budget process. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, I got a question. Has there been any national changes, or is this Mass?
This is Mass.
Okay.
Up until in the past, Massachusetts was not officially an OSHA state. And it was one of, at 1.7, that were not. But over the course of the last few years, the state has moved on to accept, replace the OSHA Section 1926 as their regs, to accept it. Prior to this, it applied to state employees. As of February 1st of last year, of this year, it applied to public entities, local governments. And so there are a variety of reporting requirements. There are any number of areas where, from a safety standpoint and a security standpoint, the town needs to be well served. We talked about developing policies and procedures. I think there's an ample number of procedures or way in which people operate, but it may not be written down. It may not be up to date. There would be a benefit to having a safety audit, and there would be a benefit to developing the department or the town's own safety manual, and then finally training to that manual, not only just once, but continuously. Otherwise, the manual sits over on the side, and there you go. So
you're going
yeah.
under compliance with 1926?
Yes, sir. That's the general requirements with regards to the state law. But state law has been originally, when they accepted it, and then the regs were involved with regards to apply to the state government, but it was always stated that in a period of time it would apply to local governments, and now it does. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, I just had a question on the Blueberry Hill boiler. This happened last year. We had the boilers put in, and then they were waiting for the burners, and they said they were supposed to start. Anyone have any idea if the burners are up
I
and running?
believe they were working on that, but I can check that for you.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I can check it.
Yeah.
Okay. No problem.
Because the last time,
I
the
mean,
burners weren't
I mean,
available.
I read what was in the report, but I don't have any update from
Yeah,
that.
okay. They said early October.
We'll
so-
check that, yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jay
Thank you.
or Paul? Paul, do you have anything?
Only to announce that Jackie has submitted her resignation to take a position in another local community.
We'll miss you. Did we do this?
Congratulations.
Well, congratulations, and good luck to you.
What community?
Well, this-
East London.
East London?
Yeah.
Traitor. Traitor.
Okay, in regards to the chair report, I just wanted to remind people, I'm putting together the email newsletter. And if you're interested in being on it and you're not on the list, send your email in to Debbie and you'll be able to get it. I was hoping to do it twice a month, but it's coming down to once a month. There's so much going on. And in fact, I'm editing the third time because every time I turn around to send it, something new has changed. Also on the DPW, an update on that. I attend those meetings, and we're still working with the asbestos issue. As we dig in areas, especially around drainage, we're finding more, so that's still being worked on, and we're working with DEP on how to handle it on a daily basis. We'll have more information and solid numbers, as I said, by the time we get to town meeting, but I think we're looking at some sort of limitation on the site, and so we're working very carefully with DEP and our legal team. Let's see, why don't we move straight ahead to approval of minutes?
Ray, I never got a copy of those minutes.
Oh, you didn't?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, well,
didn't
you
say
know,
it in the packet.
Debbie was on vacation, so things got a little, so
Yeah,
we'll skip the
I
minutes.
don't think she had finished them by the time she left for vacation, so they were never input
Put a
in there.
motion on the table, we approve the minutes of October 7th,
Why don't
2019.
they,
We don't
he said
have,
we didn't
we
get
don't
it.
have them.
We don't have them.
Well,
We didn't see them.
So we gotta wait, Debbie's gotta give it to us.
nobody got them?
Nobody got
No,
'em.
Debbie was on
Did you get 'em?
vacation.
She just gave them to you?
I'm not going to tell you.
I appreciate your, so we'll move on to the library agreement. Yeah, are people here for the library agreement?
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like
Let's
it.
hear it.
Come on up.
So Marie, I did get a call from Rose Crowley, our attorney in this process, and she said, she believes we're at the end of the journey. They've worked hard, and it'll be great. We
Did you
can-
already have resident comments?
No, we're gonna do it at 7 because we figured most people didn't realize we were starting at 6:30. So at 7 o'clock, we're gonna open to resident comments. So you'll get your chance.
We thought we were resident comments.
Oh, well, since you're here and we're doing the library agreement, you can answer any questions we might have. Tom, Jay, you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. The library agreement, as the board knows, was presented to you as well as to the Board of Library Trustees last month. After that presentation to this board, the board asked that from the administration take a look at the agreement, offer comments if appropriate. We did talk to our counsel. The council also subsequently interacted, I think, as I understand it, with the Board of Library Trustees Council. And there is a final an agreement, which I believe, from the administration standpoint, was certainly satisfactory to us. And we have no objection to the town with regards to the board moving forward relative to it. I think where our focus was principally in the area of personnel and in procurement. I think that those have been generally addressed.
Tom, did you want to say anything about it? As our
No,
liaison?
No, nothing else. I just think that, those two issues in particular maybe took a little time to iron out, but I think if you look at the contract, the agreement is pretty straightforward. We separate the difference between what is public money and what is non-public money, and in terms of procurement of things for the library. So, great.
Jean or Mary, did you want to add anything to it?
I'd just like to thank the town, Mary Robness, 22 Warren Terrace, President of the Trustees of the Library. To thank the selectmen for the collaborative and cooperative agreement, or work that presented or provided this agreement after a little bit of time and a lot of effort. But I think it's a very good product. It updates the 30-year-old contract, then honors the wishes of Miss Sarah Storrs, who died in 1907, and preserves the rights of the town and the responsibilities of the library, the rights and responsibilities of both. So bottom line is that got it. It should last for the 63 years remaining in the contract, or in the original contract. It was a 100-year contract 30 years ago.
Wow. Jean, did you want to say
And
anything?
likewise, thank you to everyone involved. There was negotiations back and forth, and a lot of time and good thought went into this, and I'm just pleased with the result, and that the library can remain, a quality resource for our town, and we're working together in a great way to make that happen.
Mark?
Just a question, has the library trustees, have they had it, did they have any comments? Have they reviewed this proposal?
We reviewed it, and then you reviewed it, and we reviewed it again, and we're happy with the way it is now.
Okay, so, okay.
The last thing.
So
for
you've been
us-
authorized to sign it on behalf of the library?
Well, not yet,
Oh, okay.
but, and you meet more than we do. So, but we had a couple of questions, they've been addressed
Oh, okay.
by the councils, and I expect that we can sign it whenever.
One other thing, Madam Chairman, is just to offer that once the agreement is signed by both parties, we'd be happy to try to set up a meeting to municipal government and the Board of Library Trustees to ensure a smooth transition if there are any issues that are still outstanding or anything like that.
Thank you, Jay. I think it's pretty seamless.
Yep.
To some extent, it recognized things that have already changed with the combining of town government under the charter, although that does not cover the library.
Right.
It affects the library, and just, it's been kind of worked its way through.
Great. No problem.
Unless
Tom, you wanna make a
change
motion?
it.
Yes, I'd like to forward a motion that the select board accept the amended operating agreement with the library.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? And I was trying to look, I couldn't find the agreement. Do you have it, Paul?
I have a copy of it, yeah, it should have been in there.
It was in there to sign?
Yeah.
Oh, and there to sign,
Oh, is it just this, no, this is the warrant. This is, no, I don't see,
there is a page that I can, it's marked up a little bit on mine.
Just to
We could
comment-
have it for you tomorrow if you don't mind.
Yeah.
signing.
yeah, because
Right.
I
I
don't
mean,
see
there is
the
a
C
back
in
page.
here.
I don't think it's in there, quite honestly. I mean,
Okay.
There is a back page, it's a little marked up, you make a decision of whether you want to
All right,
Tom.
let me see. Tom, could you
Okay.
pass
Just-
that down?
Did we mention that Debbie wasn't here last week?
All right, so we'll get that signed
Yeah,
one way.
okay. Just, does it have to be the same, is there one date or dates, different dates? Because if you're dating it
I think different
tomorrow-
dates are fine.
Yeah, there's not a date written in the draft, so we could put in today's date.
Okay.
As long as both sides sign, we're good. No problem.
Yes, that
I
happens.
know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
All right, so we have a few more minutes. Let's see, do we have time to do sign the bond action? Is there something you want to tell us about the bonds?
Well, a couple things, as people may or may not know, we did pursue two rating agencies, credit ratings, Moody's, who we normally go to, and Standard & Poor's. We did receive an upgrade, what would be considered an upgrade from Standard & Poor's. I put in I don't want to say a score sheet, but a comparable sheet that tells you what a Standard & Poor's rating equates to on a Moody scale. It was put in your correspondence section. We got an AA+ rating from Standard & Poor's, which would equate to an AA1 from Moody's,
Great.
which is again, it's an upgrade. We did go out and sell bonds last week. The true interest cost that was received was 2.213%. So we did fairly well as far as from a percentage standpoint. Those bonds were sold with a premium. Those premiums will be used. We did not fully borrow the amount authorized, so those premiums will be used against the full amount, and we will reduce the remaining amount that's outstanding there. And other than that, I mean, I think we did fairly well with, by going to Standard & Poor's this time and seeing how that worked out. We did have to pay a little bit extra for for both ratings. Obviously, going to Moody's, they're not going to do it for free. But I think what we saved in interest will more than cover the cost of that so-called confidential rating.
Any questions on that?
Paul, yeah, just a quick,
Mark?
so Paul, you said we're going to use the bond premium. Does that mean we've got to go out and re-vote, or but because it's accumulated?
Town meeting will have to vote the utilization of those premiums.
Okay. Is that no?
Yes, it should be on the
Okay.
warrant.
Paul, I want to thank you. I've been on the board since 2011, and to finally see us move up, that's huge.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of extra work, and I know you're shorthanded, but you pulled that together to present to two agencies, not just one. And I sat in those phone calls like the chairs usually do, and I was very impressed, so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for all your work.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great job.
I had a question, Paul. Is this ratings you got, is this above and beyond the normal phone call meetings?
No, again, I think you sat in on a phone
Right.
call, right? The conference, teleconference that we had was that same type of conference. We just
Okay.
had it with each one of the rating agencies.
Right.
He did a second one.
Okay.
Second
Right, so we did
rating
one with Moody's, which again, you were familiar with, but we
Right.
did that same type of rating telephone call with the people from Standard & Poor's.
Okay, and that's what you had to pay for?
Right.
Okay.
Right. We actually did get a so-called confidential, they were both confidential ratings that we received from each one of the rating agencies.
Right.
But we only are allowing one to go public, obviously, so, you know, we still have to pay for that confidential one at a lesser amount, but we still have to pay some dollar amounts for that confidential rating.
Okay.
So are you looking for a vote on the
Yes, I would
bonds?
be looking for a vote. I believe the clerk has a statement to read.
Get this down word by word.
Do I have to read the numbers as well?
Yeah.
I would assume so. I don't want to say otherwise in case I'm wrong.
So sit back, relax.
All right. It's going to be a while. I, the clerk of the Select Board of the Town of Long Meadow, Massachusetts, the town, certify that at a meeting of the board held October 21st, 2019, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified, and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. Voted that the sale of the $14,840,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2019 bonds of the town dated October 30th, 2019, the bonds, to Robert W. Baird and Company, Inc., at the price of $16,210,436.50, and accrued interest is hereby approved and confirmed. The bonds shall be payable on April 15th of the years and in the principal amounts, and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. Year 2020, amount $550,000, interest rate 5%. Year 2021, amount $485,000, interest rate 5%. Year 2022, amount $710,000, interest rate 5%. Year 2023, $1,135,000, interest rate 4%. Year 2024, $1,220,000, interest rate 5%. Year 2025, amount $1,245,000, interest rate 5%. Year 2026, amount $1,305,000, interest rate 5%. Year 2027, amount $610,000, interest rate 5%. Year 2028, $635,000, interest rate 4%. Year 2029, amount $660,000, interest rate 4%. Year 2023, amount $590,000, interest rate 4%. Year 2031, amount $630,000, interest rate 4%. Year 2032, amount $655,000, interest rate 2.25%. Year 2033, amount $650,000, interest rate 2.375%. Year 2034, amount $660,000, interest rate 2.375%. Year 2035, $660,000, interest rate 2.5%. Year 2036, amount $660,000, interest rate 2.5%. Year 2037, amount $665,000, interest rate 2.5%. Year 2038, amount $660,000, interest rate 2.625%. Year 2039, amount $450,000, interest rate 2.625%. further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the bonds, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated October 8th, 2019, and a final official statement dated October 16th, 2019, also known as the official statement, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the bonds shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions as are set forth in the official statement. Further voted that the town treasurer and the select board be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds, as applicable, for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such form as the treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to maintain, to monitor and maintain the tax exempt status of the bonds and to comply with relevant securities laws. Further voted that each member of the select board, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or, if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.03 2B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays, prior to the time of the meeting, and remain so posted at the time of the meeting that no deliberations or decision in connection with the sale of the bonds were taken in executive session. All in accordance with GL General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25 as amended, dated October 21st, 2019.
Second.
Any
Could you repeat
discussion?
that one more time? Just for the-
All those in favor? Thank you. All right, we're going to open it up to select resident comments. We have a packed agenda. If you've written an email to us, we've got a big 25 emails. Please try not to repeat what you said in your email, and because we're going to have to close it to move into a joint meeting by 7:30. Okay, and any resident comments?
I'd hope to get some closure on our first. Tom Shea, 81 Green Meadow Drive, 31-year resident. I'd hope to get some closure on this before the meeting, but have not been able to, so I go slightly over. This is regarding the DPW, which is probably the most important issue on the town warrant. First, I want to publicly state that I will be supporting Article 10, which is the legal fees to defend and recover in all matters relating to the DPW. If anything, that number's probably low. I am doing this to dispel the rumors that I am acting as a shill or on behalf of the former owner of the DPW property. Let's put that out first and foremost. Secondly, municipal finance. Bonding and appropriation are two most important things. In June of 2017, the town voted to appropriate $21.2 million for the DPW facility. August 2018, the town raised bonding. Town gets very good execution. Paul, I agree with the earlier comments. 19.9 face of bonds were issued, 1.3 premium. Symmetry, it equaled the 21.2 that was appropriated. In October 2016, the town met and voted on a warrant. Keep in mind, the premium is not free money. The town has to pay it back. I believe that warrant, which appropriated 1.3 million from the premium paid to the town upon the issuance of bonds for the BPW facility to pay costs of such capital projects. I believe the wording, discussions, and various meetings were so convoluted on that to make that warrant invalid. Furthermore, the select board minutes of 9/19/2018 reflect different wording. Was it the intent of the select board and finance committee to appropriate? Appropriate means approving of additional funds for the DPW project. Or was it the intent to allocate the bond premium to costs and cancel further bond authorization? Furthermore, why was the DIF project handled differently? I do not believe the intent was for the town to give the select board and town manager an additional 1.3 of unidentified costs. I wouldn't do that with my kitchen contractor. I believe the intent was, like I said, to apply the premium. So what I'm saying is, it does not say additional costs. It does not say, as in one of the warrants tonight, to supplement. Furthermore, if that was an appropriation, shouldn't the town have known that at that prior select board meeting, Mr. Crane discussed 1.9 to 4.2 of expenses relating to the disposal of asbestos? I don't think that was an appropriation. What I would expect to see on the upcoming warrant is $900,000 for contingency. And Marie, as you said earlier, you're still trying to come up with a number, but that's further asbestos delay damages that agrees with Montford. Look, I'm trying to get this proper disclosure so people can react to it appropriately. Those are the gist of my comments. I'll follow up with an email, but look, I want this to be transparent, full disclosure. My belief, furthermore, look at the select board video of September 17th. In the beginning, it was stated that it was not appropriating additional money. Mr. Gold, I'll single you out here. You were the chairperson at the time. In the middle of that video, approximately an hour and 27, Mr. Gold was adamant that this was not approving additional funding for the DPW project. In fact, Mr. Foster, he referenced to you and said, we are not doing that. Paul, I think you agreed with them. Look, I don't think it was your intent to appropriate additional money. If it was, the disclosure on that warrant was abysmal at best. So my view is there needs to be a redo here. You need to handle the premium properly, which Mass General laws would say is the premium should be applied to the costs of the project being financed by the bonds or notes and to reduce the amount authorized to be borrowed for the project by a like amount. Note, there is not the word appropriate. And this was, as in the warrant, it was not an administrative correction. If you wanted to appropriate additional money, there should have been an appropriation warrant, and then there separately should have been a warrant to deal with the premium. Once again, there is no mention in Mass General Law 44 of the word appropriate. I think it might have been a mistake. This is, it's a new law that came in 2016. In fact, I believe it's the first time the town has handled it this way. But that's what I'm looking for. I think the warrant that goes to the town should, in essence, redo what happened in October, and it should, number one, handle the premium, and number two, handle what needs to be appropriated now, and go on record saying the appropriation for the DPW facility is the original 21.2 from June of 2017, and whatever is needed now to get this thing done. So, two things. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, but I appreciate the time.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Any other resident comments?
Is there an order?
Nope,
No.
nope, just first come, first serve.
Or in this case.
My name is Arlene Miller, 68 East Greenwich Road, Long Meadow. I'm here, I just want to say two things. One, I want to thank Jay Moynihan for the great work he's done as our interim town manager and for the help he gave the CART implementation committee. We really appreciate that. And speaking of CARTs, we have an announcement of sorts for you. We were told on Friday, the implementation committee was told on Friday that Toter's production has, because of their increased speed with production of our carts, that they're able to start distribution Monday, the 28th of October, which is a couple weeks ahead of what we expected. We're thrilled with that. Gives us better daylight, better weather, and we're ready to go. So we're really, we want you to know first that this, the press, everything's going to start to roll out in terms of announcements this week with that date. So a couple of things we've done is we've prepared a press release that will be in this week, and I want to read it to you in a minute just because it succinctly explains what we think is the important information that residents need to know once they see this cart. So we have 3 or 4 different mechanisms of announcing this to folks. So the press release is one, but before the end of this week, there'll be a robocall going out. Mario's working on that now. We're going to have those big signs at the entrances into town. We're planning a press event for probably the 28th. We'll let you know when that is. We haven't worked that all out. And if all else fails, every cart is going to have a sleeve on it with the important information. This is your new cart. This is for blah. This is, it's, boom, 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 boom. Very, very clear stuff. So we wanted you to know. Let me just read this press release for you so you can at least be the first to know and be aware that this is happening. So it's entitled Long Meadow Trash Cart Program. After much anticipation, Long Meadow DPW and the Recycling Commission are pleased to announce that each household will receive a new, free 35-gallon wheeled trash cart beginning the week of October 28th. These carts have been primarily funded by a grant received from Mass DEP. Residents can expect to receive delivery of their new cart one day following their normal trash collection. For example, if your trash and recycling are normally picked up on a Monday, your cart will be delivered Tuesday, and so on. The trash cart will be a black 35-gallon wheeled cart with a lid. The carts will have the town of Long Meadow stamped on the sides, a serial number, and an RFID chip. Once carts are distributed, trash will only be collected from these new carts with the lids completely closed. The weight limitation as described in the town's trash regulations will remain the same, 40 pounds per household per week. Any excess trash must be placed in a town overflow blue bag, which can be purchased at most local retail stores. Residents are encouraged to find an alternate use for their current trash barrel, such as using it as a recycling container or for yard waste. If you no longer wish to keep your old trash barrel, the town will be offering a recycling program a few weeks after the new trash carts are distributed. More information about recycling your old barrel will follow on the Long Meadows website, or you can call DPW at 567-3400. So we're very excited about this. A lot of work has gone into this at this point, and it's going to be great for the town. Irwin, did you want to add anything?
You stole my thunder. That's all I-
I didn't want to do that.
Mark?
Yeah. Arlene, are there going to be provisions for people who may be away that week?
Yes.
Or there's some vacant houses in Long Meadow that we were going to put one through, but nobody's...
Vacant houses will not have one delivered to. We have a very detailed street list that's going to be given to the company that's going to be doing the
Oh, okay.
distribution.
But if somebody happens to be away that that week, there'll be somebody going around and 2 days later picking them up or whatever it is?
No. They're going to stay there. But that's a good point. We'll look into that. We have had residents call saying they're going to Florida and would you please hold our barrel? We'll get it when we get back. So we're certainly aware of
Right,
that.
as long as you're trying to make some provision for it.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, ideally, it would be if a neighbor finds it after a while, or maybe.
And hopefully that would be the case if people are going. That's why we want people to know it's coming, and if they're not going to be there, they can ask a neighbor or notify us, and we'll certainly assist in any way we can. Yes.
I just want to also encourage people that if they're only away for a week or whatever, they get a neighbor to take the barrel in instead of asking the DPW to sort it themselves.
That would be great.
And the October 28th is when you start it. It's going to be that whole week?
Yes, it'll be
or-
about a 5-day distribution. That Monday might not be a full day of distributing the carts, but it'll be certainly Tuesday through Saturday. We expect to be finished on Saturday. The carts will begin to be staged and will be delivered, and the staging will begin this weekend at DPW. So they'll be putting the wheels and the lids
So
on.
someone if they don't get theirs by, would that be November 3rd? They should be,
November 4th.
November 4th, they should be calling DPW.
Good
if they're missing one.
message.
Yep.
Good idea. Great, thank you. I'm going to definitely have you part of the press
Yeah,
conference.
that.
You can talk trash, Marie. Wouldn't that be fun? But, and if you have any questions later on, be happy to.
Okay. Well, thank you for all the hard work. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Any other resident comments?
Thanks for all very exciting to be getting new trash cans. So, I'm Andrea Chasen, and I wanted to take an opportunity to ask the Select Board to take, oh, by the way, I live at 236 Crestview Circle. I'm here to ask the Select Board to take a firm stand for voting against the proposed Tennessee Gas Pipeline and Columbia Gas siting of the metering gas utility station on the grounds of Long Meadow Country Club. I believe that you are all aware, maybe will be becoming aware, of the fact that Congressman Neal, who has been approached by members of the town, has said that he is willing to support Long Meadow in its opposition to the building of the metering station in the residential siting on Long Meadow Country Club. His willingness to help requires that the Long Meadow be clear that it doesn't want the metering station as it is proposed. This is certainly a very reasonable request from the congressman, since he doesn't want to go out on the limb if we aren't going to be there to support that. So I ask that we show our town's opposition to the siting of this facility in order to fully gain the help of both our state and federal representatives who seem willing to stand up and help us. Moreover, your vote will also send a necessary message to the state's Department of Public Utilities. This is a lot riding on your willingness to take this public stance. Long Meadow, I think, needs to send a strong message to the state that it's time for our state to actively really support its local communities to meet the state's goals of reducing greenhouse gases as required under the Global Warming Solutions Act. Right now, the Baker administration tends to throw our taxpayer dollars back to us to reduce the damage from global warming, but it does almost nothing to deal with the cause of it by continuing to allow the development of an expansion of fossil fuel delivery, which is part of the major contributor to the greenhouse gases. This state should be demanding that the utility companies repair their leaking gas lines well before they request expansion for the service. And if we as a community and then as a state are truly serious about the work that needs to be done to keep our communities and residents safe from both the real possibilities of gas explosions and global warming, I believe we really need to step up and be heard. So your vote at this time to oppose the siting of the gas pipeline, the metering station, will allow our collective voices to be heard in opposition to this. So I thank you for your support on that.
Thank you. Any other?
Gary Levine, 207 William Street. Just want to add a bit to what Andrea said, that March of this year, the Massachusetts Energy Facility Siting Board had a meeting in town to allow residents to express their thoughts about the health and safety issues about the gas metering station and the pipeline project. 40 residents spoke against it, no one spoke in favor. We had 3 votes in the past year concerning the project. First vote was to add strict environmental safety and health bylaws in case the project does move forward. Town voted yes. Had a vote on whether to allow the select board to pursue a plan to purchase the land from the Long Meadow Country Club. The town voted yes. Finally, we voted to change the zoning bylaws to block the building of such a facility in residentially zoned areas of town. Again, the town voted yes. According to an engineer who lives in town, the proposed gas metering station would be placed in an area where, should an accident occur, the homes in nearby Wolf Swamp Elementary School would be destroyed. Congressman Neal has offered to intervene with the Federal Energy Regulation Commission on our behalf by informing FERC that the site for the proposed metering station is ill-advised. In order to do this, he needs a public statement of opposition to the proposed project from the Select Board. Thus, I urge the Select Board to follow the wishes of the vast majority of our town and vote yes on a statement of opposition to the proposed Long Meadow metering station and pipeline project in order to protect the health, safety, and future of our town and its residents. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Morantz, and I live at 117 Rugby Road. I'm speaking tonight as a concerned resident and as chair of the Long Meadow Pipeline Awareness Group, whose members are keenly interested in the Select Board issuing a statement of opposition to the proposed meter station and pipeline to be built on Long Meadow Country Club property. Several weeks ago, I was a part of a small group of pipeline members who met with Congressman Neal to ask for his help in opposing this project. After hearing our concerns about its health, safety, and economic risks, Congressman Neal generously offered to intervene with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission on the town's behalf as long as Long Meadow's Select Board issued a statement of opposition that included the following 3 points. 1, that the Select Board opposes siting this project at its projected location on Long Meadow Country Club property. 2, that the Select Board ask that Tennessee Gas submit to FERC an environmental assessment of the project. And 3, that Tennessee Gas observe the town's permitting process in whatever construction project it pursues within town boundaries. As a Select Board statement is on tonight's agenda for approval, I'd like to remind the members that these 3 components were requested by Congressman Neal and are integral to his intervention with FERC. I trust that the letter you discussed tonight will include this vital information so that Congressman Neal is empowered to move forward with his assistance. Long Meadow residents have spent over a year urging the Select Board to advocate on our behalf regarding the meter station and pipeline. A comprehensive statement of opposition on your part will go a long way in assuring us that you have the best interests of the community in mind. Thank you.
Any other resident comments? Okay, we're going to move, I see our chair of the school committee. We're going to move, I guess, into our joint meeting, so it'll take a few minutes for us to get organized, or did you want us to just try to
Maybe I think we
get
thought he
you
was
in?
coming in
Okay,
early.
can
Yeah.
we move you in real fast?
Thank you. I'm Jim Martin, the law firm Robinson Dunham in Springfield. I live at 38 Action Road, Long Meadow, Massachusetts. I represent the Long Meadow Medical Arts Development at 21 Dwight Road and have done so through the process of creating the DIF and the building and permitting of it. As you may recall, part of the project was to improve the intersection. And those plans were commissioned by the town and laid out, and the intersection was built. Integral to that improvement was the taking of certain lands of the owner. There is the radius on the corner that was required in order to widen the street. And then there was land along the front of the building that was also required to widen the street. The town approached us about that, sent us draft notice of taking documents. We sat down a couple of times with the town representatives, council, and town manager and Paul. And in the end, we commissioned an appraisal of the property, and it's in two components. One was an actual deed, which would have been a taking, and the other is an easement, because if the property was either deeded or taken, it would then put the building in violation of its setbacks along the way. After that was done and the appraisal was arrived at, we met again, and Mr. Crawley, the principal and the contact for this, offered to the town saying, the appraisal is $63,000. I'm willing to donate that to the town, to save the town that money. And so we prepared new documents, which would be a deed for the parcel at the radius, and then a permanent easement for the parcel along the property along the sidewalk. We met with Jay and his team 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Paul was there.
Couple weeks, yep.
And because there was a question from the town as to whether or not the town manager could accept the property, whether it had to go to town meeting, and then Jesse, we met with Jesse as well, he was there, and it was determined that the best thing to do is bring it to the selectmen, make the offer of the donation, and if the select board accepted it, that would be sufficient. I could then circulate the documents to be executed, and we could record them and fill out the forms for the donation to the town. So we're here tonight to summarize that for you and to present it to you and ask you to endorse the acceptance of the gift and the permanent easement and allow us to go forward and finish this.
Any questions for Mark?
Yeah, Attorney Martin, I've looked at the documents that were submitted to us, and actually the only documents we really got was the assessment, the independent evaluation that was done by, or an assessment that was done for your client. And I got to tell you, I'm hard pressed to identify the parcel in all of that. I mean, there's literally maps and circles and arrows and charts and all that kind of stuff, but nowhere does it show. I mean, it does a great job of looking at it, but nowhere does it show, here's what it looked like, and here's where the street goes, and this was your land, and now it's part of the street. And that's what I can't find. And if it's me, then somebody needs to point that out to us a lot better than has been in this. The other thing I just want to point out is that I'm a little struck by the fact that I saw what went on Converse Street. When we worked on Converse Street, we were required to get temporary easements. I mean, there are people we were paying $45 for before we could stand on their land to put in sidewalks. And here we literally took the land, paved over it for a street with no agreement at all.
That is correct.
And I can't understand how that was allowed to happen, frankly, on either side. I mean, not just by the landowner, but also by the town. I mean, it seems that we truly put the cart before the horse here by paving the land that we didn't own.
Let me address your comments. First of all, I don't know what the issue is, and maybe you say it's you, and maybe it is you, but I have emails from your council. All the documents have been submitted. We brought them to the meeting. I have an email that says the documents are perfect, acceptable to the town. I have a copy of the deed, I have a copy of the easement, and I have another copy of the plan. This plan has been in the town for a long time. If you'd like it, I'll submit it to you. It shows clearly the position of the intersection and the taking and the sidewalk easement. So if you'd like these, I'd be happy to give them to you. I don't know what happened to yours.
No, I mean,
So it's pretty straightforward. And those are the documents you want me. I can read Jesse's email, but he sent it to me last week. As for your second comment, you're spot on that. This has been, to the frustration of several of us, this has been kicking around for a long time. And I think it's a testament to Mr. Crowley that he wasn't going to make a big deal about it and say, stop, don't do this work until we get straightened out, because it will seem to be taking longer than it should. And he allowed them to move forward basically on a handshake that, you know, we're going to either take this property or we're going to give it to you. And so that's what happened. They were under a tight time frame, as you know, to get the intersection improved within a certain period of time, to get the building occupied by Bay State Medical Center. And he made the calculated decision that it would get worked out in the end. But you are absolutely right. You essentially did take the property by your actions.
Jay, do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, I went back through. I believe it's probably, with Debbie out, it was supposed to be included in the packet material. We did review it with town council, who recommended that the agreement be approved as presented. He looked at both the easement and the deed. This is not the same as the question with regards to the $2.5 million that has been previously discussed. That's a separate item.
Yes, we did. That is a separate item, not here tonight to address that. We had a meeting following the meeting you had when I wasn't here, had a very productive meeting with Mario, Jay, Jesse, Mike, and myself, and we're working on that, and when everyone, I think, is satisfied that we're ready to present that, we will. But I have extra copies, Madam Chairman, of the plan, if you want them. I have extra copies of the deeds. I have extra copies of the easements.
Does
They're
anyone
fun
else
to
want a
read.
copy of the
So if
map?
you'd like to
Well,
read.
I think I'm going to follow our attorney and Jay's recommendation.
Does it have to be signed tonight, or can they approve it at their next meeting?
Well, since the road is built, the sidewalk's in, I mean,
That's
you
my
know.
point, yeah.
We're sort of a year late as it is.
There actually is a technical reason why we find, to effectuate the donation under the IRS rules, it's supposed to be completed within 60 days of the
Oh, wow.
appraisal. So that's, we kept ringing that bell, we're running out of time, so it would be nice to approve it tonight, but, it may cause us to have to go
Is
back to the
there-
appraiser.
That's right. Tom?
I'd make a motion to accept the Dwight Road easement
And gift, right?
and gift of the deeded land for the purpose of sidewalks and road, yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah.
Mark?
I think the easement and the gift of land ought to be two separate
Motions, two separate motions?
issues. They are two separate
They are.
issues. The land, from where what I can tell from this, looks like it's a corner of the intersection of Maple Road and Dwight Road.
Correct, yeah,
It's-
just, it takes the radii of the turn.
Right, and, I'm shocked that it's.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we'll
I
start
have-
with the motion on the easement first,
But
Tom?
Marie, I just have to ask,
Yeah.
but I now have a picture of it. There's a good deal of it that's in East Longmeadow.
No, none of this land is in Long Meadow. None of this land is in East Long Meadow.
None?
None of the land in the Long Meadow Medical Arts Center is in East Long Meadow. It is all Long Meadow property.
Okay, so the diagram that we've got that shows the East Longmeadow line isn't, not the one you gave me, but one
I don't know
we
what
have
you-
where all the.
I don't know what you have in front of you.
Right, there's a diagram where I'm assuming what's in green is
I'm not sure what you're looking at. I've got,
it's page 27 of
Is
the
it that
appraisal
above the
document.
easement or the gift?
This is the gift.
Okay, so let's start with the motion on the
Yeah,
easement.
So I'll amend my motion to be just accepting the Dwight Road easement.
Is there a second?
Second.
I guess the question
Yeah,
on easement is.
discussion on the easement?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what we're being granted and why. I understand that there's an issue here, but I'm just concerned it sets a precedent for others.
Well, I
that-
think it's land that's in the road and covered by the road.
well, the
correct?
easement is,
No,
the
the
easement is
easement
for
is
the
a sidewalk.
sidewalk.
For the
The
sidewalk.
easement is for the sidewalk.
Public sidewalk is currently on private property.
But doesn't the town have an easement a certain distance from the center of this road everywhere by,
Who owns
Statute?
Well,
the
there are no
public sidewalk in
sidewalks
front of
there.
the shops?
I don't know, in front of the shops. The point of the easement, as I understood it, was for the purposes of ensuring, from a setback standpoint, for the landowner, that was an easement so that it was not going to impact with regards to the zoning requirements.
There was never a sidewalk there.
Well, my concern is who shovels the sidewalk now? If we own it,
It says
you're not
in the
going to shovel
agreement.
the
Well, you own the
sidewalk.
sidewalk in front of my house, and I'm responsible for shoveling.
Yeah, that was in the agreement, what
It's
we got.
no different.
Mm-hmm.
It's the landowner's responsible for taking care of their property.
Right, and that was in the materials we got, I guess it was an email.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? No. All those in favor? All those opposed?
I'm just not.
Okay. Is there a motion on the gift?
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the gift in regards to the Dwight Road project.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the gift.
Yeah, I'd love to know the background and how this, where the agreement was along the way, but clearly that's been lost in
Where the
the
agreement was-
project of doing this.
I have, if you'd like to go through this, about 25.
Well, I understand your sarcasm, but the point is that there's a project done where the town, private property was taken by the town without proper authorization. Now we're being asked retroactively to approve it. And I don't doubt the fact that we took it. And I don't, but the fact that we did it, it just is, I'm incredulous that was done. That's no comment about you and your law firm or even your client. It's just that it was done improperly.
We have to thank
It
you
was
for
done out of
cooperating.
order.
And I know you wanted the project done, but I think that it was something that was done inappropriately, so.
Yeah, I mean, we had lots of communication with your town council and your town manager over the last year.
But they don't have the authority to do what you did, to give, that's my beef here, is the people who you spoke to who said, sure, didn't have the authority, and we did. So somebody usurped the authority of the select board, and now it's taking back the select board, approve it because we already did it.
You don't have to approve it.
Well,
You can
we
take
do
the
have to
property and
approve
pay
it.
for it. No, you can take for the property and pay for it.
Yeah.
You don't have to accept the gift. You can take the property and approve it.
Or not take any action at all, apparently.
No,
Yeah.
I think legally you do have to take some action.
Well, I could
So is
say
there
that
any-
we did
We
receive
should've
a lot
done
of
it 6 months
plans.
ago.
I know, we
When
should
we
have.
approved this project, we received a number of plans, and they showed the changes. It is disconcerting that it wasn't brought up at that time, which land would have to be appropriated and easements and so on. It sounds a little familiar, the easement part, but I don't remember any comments about.
Let me say one other
the
thing.
deed of
This has
land.
been before your planning board.
Yeah.
And your planning board had a public hearing, and your planning board has signed off on the Mylar approving this. This was the original plan
Yeah.
presented a couple of years ago, and then this past summer, the planning board, because it was a site design review that had to be revised, and the planning board signed off on it. So this has not been any subject to a lack of communication or transparency.
But it's true, I mean, you would have, ordinarily, you would expect that the town would have already taken action and had the property before any road construction occurred.
Correct, and we
So let's-
brought this up,
I
and
understand,
it wasn't getting done, and we.
It only needs a
and it
vote of the
couldn't
select
work.
board. This could have done, it's not like it needed a town meeting, it could have been done
A year ago.
a year ago.
Yeah. So
It should've
any
been.
other further questions?
Well,
All
the other-
those-
The other comment, before we vote, is just to remind everyone how much better that intersection is. I mean, I go by that intersection on a daily basis, and my first impression was this is gonna be a lot worse. And over time, I've gotten more comfortable with it, and it is a huge improvement. And we
thank you
do
for saying
appreciate your gift. I mean, it may
Well,
not
it's not
sound
mine,
like
it's
it,
my client's.
but your client's gift, we appreciate the gift. It is a smoother running intersection, which is helpful to the town and the residents of town who have to go through there on a regular basis, so.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, thank you very much,
I
and
will leave the original documents with Jay, and
Yep.
who's been great to work with. by the way.
thank you, and
Yeah,
thanks,
thanks
Jay,
for-
for your guidance
No
on
problem,
this.
thank you.
Sorry, Armin, you want to bring everybody in? We're now moving to the joint meeting with school committee and finance.
So this, this is the other one.
Tom?
Yes. I missed one?
I was gonna make you find the one you missed.
That's me.
Oh, there we go. That's right, that wasn't first.
Mark, did you? Okay, so Marie missed it.
Have we all signed it, or is this another?
That's the one.
Grab a chair and pull up.
Can I leave too?
Huh?
Can I leave?
No, you gotta stay.
Yeah, this is the first night.
Yeah, pull up. Everybody pull up.
Grab a seat.
Get the finance committee up.
Yeah. There's room.
RSVP.
Huh?
Didn't have the name tag.
Oh, you were so.
Yes, of course.
How you doing? Good.
You came. It was
No, I don't
close.
mean this.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You said you. Where?
Right there.
Oh.
Yeah, she was sitting back there before.
I know. You guys going Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
Yeah, I put it back to 2 hours. That's all. At this point, there's no more. Show it to them right there. That's awesome. You know, I mean, the vanity and all that.
I thought we'd have everyone introduce themselves.
Toughest game we had.
Yeah, they were tough.
Interesting.
Paul, are you about ready for us? Okay. Okay, we're opening the joint meeting of the Finance Committee, the School Committee, and the Select Board. But I thought we'd do a little differently. Let's go around the room and introduce ourselves because our new town manager, Lynn Simmons, is here. So she needs to meet all of us. We'll start with Lynn. Lynn, you want to introduce yourself and we'll move around?
Lynn Simmons,
Uh-huh.
soon to be town manager.
Tom?
Yes, Dr. Tom Recuse, Select Board.
Mark Strange, Select Board.
Armin Ray, school committee.
Marie Angelina, Select Board.
Richard Foster, Select Board.
Mark Gold, Select Board.
Ladies first.
Jamie Hench, school committee.
Brian Kelly, School Committee.
Kevin Shea, school committee.
Robin Monahan, school committee.
Susie Bell, School Committee.
Don Griffith, Finance Committee.
Lori Garrett, Finance Committee.
Paul Pasterzik, Finance Director.
Eileen Moran, Finance Committee.
Tom Dignazio, Finance Committee.
Gianna Allentuck, school committee.
Marty O'Shea, superintendent.
Thank you. All right, Paul, you ready for us now?
I do have hard copies if anybody needs a hard copy.
Oh, in the back of the room? You want to introduce yourselves for Lynn?
Superintendent, assistant superintendent for learning.
Tom Naz, Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations.
Diane Trigantis, administrative assistant to the superintendent.
Does anyone want hard copies from Paul?
Well, could I?
School committee, they should be in your packet under agenda item number 11.
You if you want to see them around.
And are you gonna have this on?
Yeah, it's
On that too?
here also.
Okay.
No, I didn't see it.
This is a meeting we have once a year, and the three committees, and we begin the budget process. So Paul tells us where we are right now, where we need to go.
Usually I started this conversation or discussion with just a quick update of where we are with Proposition 2.5 and approaching the levy ceiling. As folks know, we are inching our way towards that magical $25 per thousand levy ceiling, in which case we would not be able to raise the additional 2.5% that we are currently allowed to raise. First of all, I just point out there are two constraints under Proposition 2.5. The first constraint is the one that most people know of, and that is the fact that you can only raise 2.5% of the prior year's levy limit in that current year's levy. That amount is just under about $1.3 million annually. And if we ever hit that ceiling, that $1.3 million will be lost revenue on an annual basis until the market values of our properties, taxable properties, was catching up to that $25. The second one is the one that we're more concerned with, is that the levy limit cannot be greater than the levy ceiling. And the levy ceiling equals 2.5% of the valuation, or that magical $25 per thousand. Very quickly, I just want to show this numerically, where we are with FY20 towards the end of, over in here, that we're basically just taking the prior year levy limit of $48,289,000, and that's the beginning process for the FY20 Proposition 2.5 calculation. We are multiplying it by the 2.5%, that amount being 1.207 that we're annually allowed to raise. Currently, I have estimated new growth to be $250,000. Usually about $150,000 plus comes in through renovations that are done within town properties, small additions, even some new developments or new homes put up. But there is also an expectation about $100,000 of that will be the Dwight Road medical facility that will be coming online in our values for FY21. That's why it's a little bit higher than we normally have seen. And this number here of the $49,746,000, that is the number that we have to compare to the Prop 2.5 number. If we took our valuations and multiplied it times the $25 per thousand, here is our estimated valuations for FY20. All these are actuals in 19 before that, but we would be able to raise $54,008,000. That leaves us with basically some remaining tax capacity of about $5 million. And as you can see, as we move forward, we're gradually chewing away at that number, so that in the near distant future, potentially without any market growth, this does not include any market growth though. I want to be clear about that. Without any market growth in our valuation, that we would be hitting the Proposition 2.5 limits within about 3 or 4 years. Historically, I just want to point out that the town has raised the maximum amount of possible levy capacity, with the exception of beginning in FY 2019. The Select Board and Finance Committee made a conscious decision only to raise 2.25% of that 2.5%, and they left about $100,000 left in levy capacity in FY 19. The goal for FY 20 was to raise 2% of the 2.5%. That would leave in excess of about $240,000. That would not be utilized. And the goal that the Selectmen and Finance Committee are looking at for FY 21 is 1.75% of the 2.5%. That would leave about $373,000 left on the table. Historically, on the very bottom, over in this area, you have some of the historical amounts that we have left on the table since the beginning of Proposition 2.5 in FY 1982. And you can see that it is very rare up until this point in time that we've left any money on the table. So I just want to point that out. There's been a new trend again, trying to be less dependent on the tax levy in order to avoid that levy ceiling in the near future. This is just a historical perspective of our tax levy and the percent of valuations. Again, there's nothing extraordinary about here. I think what we do see that, and back in the 2009, 2010 arena is where we kind of had maxed out with our valuation. The valuations then dropped dramatically as we went through a period of recession and so on and so forth. And that only now are we getting back to where we were basically 10 years ago in the taxable valuation of the town. Here's where I project where I think, based upon certain assumptions, we would hit the levy limit. The first assumption does not include any market growth. It is only including the growth from the new growth that I mentioned, which is very small. But if that were the case, and carrying all the numbers out that we know, in what we know as actuals in FY19, and carrying those out, that in basically 2024, with a stagnant valuation, that in 2024, we would be hitting that levy capacity, that we would no longer be able to raise that $1.2 or $1.3 million in additional taxing capacity every year. That is kind of the key number. That's the number that we're watching. Again, I want to just express that the fact that there is no market growth in these numbers, the market is going to move one way or another. Hopefully, it's going to go up. But historically, as you saw with that historical 10 or 12-year history that I gave you, it could actually go down, which would accelerate us. If it went down, it would accelerate this. If it goes up, it would push it off. There is another.
Wait, Paul, there's a question.
Yeah.
Paul, aren't we pushing the envelope right now on growth, nonstop growth?
We are a built-out community.
No, I mean economy-wise.
When you say we're pushing the envelope.
Yeah, because we've been going up since 2008. Historically, shouldn't we be seeing a downturn start?
Well, we've had a downturn in the 2010, 2011. We went down.
Right, yeah, but it started in 2008 and bottomed out. We're now 2019. Isn't it about every 10 years you get a ripple?
I'm sure there at some point in time there's going to be a ripple. I don't want to say, I'm not an economist. One can make their own conclusions on that, Rich. You know.
Okay.
I know that I believe that minimally going into FY20, we will see our values go up something greater than 2.5%. So when exactly we may hit that point, if historical trends hold true, as you're referring to, we may see that valuation start to either level off or come down. So it is very possible.
Is it not true it's already started in some places in the country, if we're listening to national news? Some of the larger markets are already getting to settling.
I am not 100% sure, Rich. Again, it could very well be. I know the eastern part of the state is skyrocketing.
Yeah, I'm talking about major markets out west now.
Yeah, I mean, it very well could be. I do not have any information on that off the top of my head.
Okay.
Anyway, this lower number assumes a 1% market growth, and if we were able to achieve a 1% the 1% market valuation growth, then we would be pushing that. Off to about 2028 or 2029. So any little movement in market growth is going to have an effect that is going to push out hitting that ceiling, obviously in our favor. Just a historical perspective of new growth. You have the numbers on the side of what our new growth has historically been. I'm anticipating, again, as I said before, the FY20 new growth to come in something greater than $250,000. So it would be basically right at the line where it ended if we extended that one more year. And again, we will be picking up Dwight Road. I do not anticipate that new growth would be as high going into 2021 or beyond. And again, this is just more of past history. If people are interested in following the trends, so on and so forth, I just wanted they would have that information available. They wanted to see where we were with levy ceiling and valuation and so on and so forth. I next wanted to get into what the budget assumptions that the selectmen have currently have in place in kind of in a draft format. Unfortunately, I don't see them on my list here. No, that's numeric.
Is it a Word document?
That's one.
Is budget assumptions?
Yeah, no, it's a Word document.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I didn't see it, that's all. Here they are. Basically going through these, the assumptions that are included in the numeric presentation that will follow up later is that we are estimating that we would input initially into the estimates that we'll use the full 2.5% allowable levy limit, that we can get up to that. Again, the difference later will be taken off the bottom, and I will show you how that works numerically, and that's about $373,000. But in the initial presentation, we will use the full amount of the Proposition 2.5 taxing capacity. State aid, I've estimated to go up 4%. The state has been fairly generous, especially in the area of Chapter 70, school aid. The actual amounts that we've received over the last, say, 3 or 4 years have been slightly greater than the 4%. However, prior to that last 3 or 4 years, they were quite less. They were in the vicinity of 2%. So I did up the estimate for this fiscal year to 4%. Most receipts, we anticipate, most local receipts, which are your things of licenses and permits, interest that we earn on our investments, certain things that are generated locally, we are estimated that those will go up 2% with a certain few exceptions. Our ambulance service has done very well, where those increases that we've seen over the years and our actual revenues have gone up fairly substantially. The increase there is $100,000 or 13%. And there's a few others that are a little bit greater or less than the normal 2%. But the overall increase is about a 3.5% of the bottom line, or $186,000. I mentioned that the new growth is estimated at $150,000 in the absence of the DIF, or the Dwight Road project. The assumption also is to not utilize any reserves, and this projection does not utilize any reserves. Stormwater Enterprise Fund has a substantial general fund subsidy to it. The first year of implementation was FY19. The general fund subsidized about 70% of that stormwater fee, or stormwater fund. 30% was done through the fees. In FY20, it went up to a 65-35 split, and the selectmen have made a commitment to gradually increase, or I should say gradually decrease, the general fund subsidy, and we're looking at somewhere in the vicinity of 42.5% will be generated through fees in FY21. They're again reducing the reliance on the general fund, and more of the just attaching more of it to the fees associated with the stormwater. Special revenue funds, and speaking with Tom Mazza, are expected to go down, basically in the area of circuit breaker. We've dropped that about $73,000. So we have some assumptions based on those revenue assumptions.
Okay, quick question. On the new growth estimate, you got 150. You're saying that's just the standard new growth in town?
That's just the standard new growth.
So what is the total new growth if you add in Dwight Road?
250.
So we're valuing the property at Dwight Road less than $1 million?
No. We already have in FY19, we already picked up a portion of that new growth. This is now the full valuation would be in FY20, which amounts to about another $100,000.
So what's the full valuation of that property?
It's going to be somewhere in $8 or $9 million.
Okay.
It's going to generate about $180,000, $190,000 in tax revenue.
Okay, thanks.
I will say most of that revenue has to go towards the debt that was taken out on it. So there will be a slight amount that will go into the general fund, but most of it goes towards the debt service. Under the assumptions for the uses, we are looking at a 3% increase overall for wages. That takes into consideration both the cost of living increases, which have been historically in the 2% plus or minus arena, plus step increases. Other expenses, again, I've put it in a small 0.5% to cover inflation and other ancillary costs. That 0.5% amounts roughly to $71,000. Employee retiree benefits, 7.5%. I'll get to a little bit later, but the selectmen have made a conscious decision about the OPEB, where it normally would have gone up 0.25% of the tax levy. They made a conscious decision to potentially change that. But anyway, that 7.5% of retirement benefits, medical insurance, retiree health insurance, the retirement assessment that we get from the county, Medicare wages that we have to match, so on and so forth, amounts to just over $700,000. Our debt service will be going up in the vicinity of $700,000. Most of that is attributable to the just borrowing the money for the Council on Aging. It will be year one of our debt service payments in actually it'll be year two. In FY20 we'll have the first year. It'll be year two in FY21. That debt service is estimated to be, again, somewhere under $700,000. But we're also going to we have borrowings for the streetlights. We have borrowing that we're changing to LED. We have borrowings for the closure of phase 1 on the landfill. All those additional amounts will come to about $700,000 on the debt service. The contribution to the OPEB, the selectmen have made a decision to only contribute $500,000 this year. Normally, had they followed the policy that was that they had in place previously, it would have gone up somewhere at about $760,000. But again, it certainly puts a damper on the operating portion of the budget to go up that high. The other concern was they want to utilize and make sure money gets into our operational stabilization fund. The operational stabilization fund is something that the rating agencies look at in particular. They check our reserve levels, want to make sure they're adequate. We have been accused of, or I should say it is almost annually put in any type of update that we get that our reserve levels are low for comparable like-rated communities. So they made a conscious decision to apply some of that money to go directly into the operational stabilization fund. And then the capital contribution, according to the selectmen's policy, will go up to 3.25%. It's a 0.25% increase from the prior year, and that amounts to about $209,000. Now, to put this in a numerical perspective, very quickly, put this in a numerical perspective. I'm talking about all the incremental costs now, whether they're on the revenue side or the expense side. All this would add up to about $2.7 million worth of new revenue. However, most of it or a lot of it is already spoken for. The increase in health insurance at 7.5% would amount to $385,000. The pension assessment is about $250,000. The big one at the very end of the column here is the increase in the debt service, again, mainly attributable to the Council on Aging of $616,000. The Council on Aging is a debt excluded authorization, so the increase in the expense also is included in the increase in the revenues. There are other areas taken into consideration, as I mentioned. The contribution to the capital fund, $209,000. There is actually a decrease in the OPEB contribution of $121,000. A 3% increase in school wages amounts to about $900,000. In non-school wages, about $300,000. The 0.5% in general expenses, $70,000. An increase to the operational stabilization fund out of the tax levy. It has not been done before. So there, in the first year, FY21 would be $250,000, so it's the full increment that shows there. And then we have some small amounts of what the stormwater, the impact on the stormwater fee, and then the increase that shows in the unused levy capacity. I define those as kind of non-discretionary, the top ones in this particular column. And then we have the so-called discretionary uses where we have some control over the ones in this area here. Anyway, putting all those in, we would end up with roughly a $675,000 deficit that would be projected for FY21. It is nothing out of the ordinary to start year to year with that deficit. There's also many things that would go in our favor over the years that have come through. And I would anticipate that FY21 is also going to have the same scenario, that we will end up with a deficit in our original budget, draft that the town manager gets. However, I do not believe it will be quite that big. This other area on the right of the solid gray line is just another way of saying the exact same. It just makes some slight differentials in what are considered to be non-discretionary uses and what are considered to be discretionary uses. Those being the increase in the capital contribution in this area is a so-called non-discretionary use. And then we have the OPEB that would also be happens to be a deficit. And these other ones would be considered discretionary, but again, it comes out to the same number. We also had applied a few years ago if we were to basically slice the pie based upon a percentage that we currently have. If we had to come up with numbers of how we would address the FY21 budget, basically, again, up here that we're showing these numbers as being available before we get into our discretionary uses. If we had to slice that into school and non-school, that we would basically say that the schools, depending on the definition of discretionary, non-discretionary, would have an increase of roughly $782,000 in one calculation, or $717,000 in another calculation. But again, note that that does not even potentially cover the amount that is estimated to be their wage increases for the year. So it was just a kind of a revenue sharing thing that we had started to do a few years ago. And we've kind of kept on track with it for the most part overall. So it has worked to some degree, but it's nothing concrete that has been actually written in stone. The last thing that I will bore you with is the exact...
Well, before you leave that slide,
yep.
Why do you consider wages as discretionary? Most of those are contractual, or they've been negotiated. They're not subject to us saying we don't want to do it or we can't afford to do it.
I consider them discretionary because you would have the option of laying off folks if you needed to.
Okay.
Hey, Paul, I have one quick question too, just so I understand it. The increase in the operational stabilization fund, whenever you said they said that we didn't have adequate supplies, who is they? Is it
the rating agencies?
So it's purely the rating agencies, and so we think that is going to save us money? We think, or we did it out? Is that
well,
just
we again, we are low when it comes to our reserve. So this $250,000 by itself is probably not going to make a difference.
Okay.
But if we continue on that trend, at some point in time,
we're going to get
that comment would hopefully be eliminated from the comments that are normally made.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Jane, we just floated a bond at the lowest interest rates we've ever paid. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just floated a bond. We were very lucky. We actually looked at Standard & Poor's and Moody's to give us ratings, and actually Standard & Poor's gave us an upgrade.
So the one thing I will say, there's very few of those type bonds out on the market. So they are getting better and better interest rates, even if you aren't the perfect candidate for those particular bonds. So I think if we're issuing those, we're at an advantage So I wouldn't be as nervous about that, just from a personal standpoint. Obviously, there's a lot more research that we need to be behind it, but there's not a lot of muni bonds out there. So I think we're at an advantage.
Yeah, and I would say that Long Meadow is also sold on the market greater than its former AA2 rating also. So, I mean, it just, a lot of our debt is excluded, which makes it more attractive because it's almost guaranteed. So we have sold better than basically our rating has actually been.
Oh, there were three, with respect to the rating agent, Moody's ratings and the impact on our borrowing, there's been three factors that you've discussed with us in the past, and I don't know if your opinion on those have changed, but one being what you already mentioned, which is that we've gotten a higher rating from Standard & Poor's by getting that second rating agency to look at us, but also that even within Moody's, aren't they saying that even though our reserves are low for like communities, that they are more typical for Massachusetts specifically?
They are, yes, they are typical for Massachusetts. Again, every state has its unique type of aspects, and that is one that they do highlight. I will say one of the other things that I probably have mentioned to the Finance Committee is that our level of debt is something to be concerned with also. I mean, we have floated a lot of debt over the last 6 or 7 years. I mean, this high school, Council on Aging, DPW, we are getting up there. There is a policy that the selectmen have that the debt service to be no more than, I believe it's 12% of the operating budget, and we're probably going to be approaching 10 or 11% at this point in time. So it's something that we just, not that we can't issue small amounts of debt, because we'll be retiring $3 or $4 million a year. But I just think that we probably, in the very near future, 3 to 4 or 5 years maybe, a large debt package would probably be something that could get us into trouble.
Well, there was one other factor that you mentioned before, that that even though we have those low numbers, and even take into account the fact that we're in Massachusetts, that there were some other factors unique to the town, which Moody's was inclined to continue us with the AA2 rating despite the low reserves?
I'm not quite sure what you're getting. I will say, and correct me if this doesn't answer your question, that Moody's and Standard & Poor's weight certain aspects of the criteria that they use differently. That Standard & Poor's uses a higher weight for the town's financial management and policies, and that those were some of the strengths that are always mentioned. So we get a higher weight, or we did get a higher weight as part of the overall rating with Standard & Poor's, and that was one of the main reasons why we got the bump up, as opposed to Moody's, who takes it at a lesser weight in that regard. So I don't know if that answers your question more.
In part it does, but there were some other factors that...
I think it was the fact that most of our expenses are labor, which is very predictable. Right?
We do have predictable, yes, certainly.
That was a positive.
On the Moody's.
On the Moody's
right,
report.
Right. The volatility of our expenditures is minimal. And just finally, the last one I show you, and this is for anybody who really wants to get into the detail, that you'll have the comparison, the side-by-side comparison of where the FY20 budget is as compared to the projection of FY21. The first page here is basically all summary. I will show you very quickly. Here is where, on the very bottom of page 1, if you look at your hard copy, here is where I take into account the goals of either the 2 or the 1.75%, how I take that into consideration. And then once we get into page 2, I start presenting the details of where the numbers on page 1 actually came from. You have the property tax calculation, you'll have the chapter, or you'll have the state aid calculation, you'll have the detail of our local receipts, and then finally, once you get to page and the detail of what we use to look at school special revenues, and then finally on page 3, the detail is where we make the assumptions apply to all the expenses. So again, that's for somebody who really wants to get into the details of all this and to where the actual numbers, how they all kind of come together, the worksheets that I use during this whole process. So other than that, I have nothing else to present. I don't know if anybody else has questions.
Questions? I have one. Paul, if we hit the ceiling this year, which means we wouldn't be able to raise 1.75, we'd be in the hole how much further?
If we were not able to raise the 1.75 or basically the 2.5%,
Yeah.
I'll use the 2.5%. That number for FY20 is, I believe, $1.2 million. You know, if we were not able to raise that, we would be looking at operational, we would be into operational cuts. There's no doubt about it. We could, you know, put less into capital, we could put less into OPEB. We could put less into some of those discretionary kind of areas. We could cut into reserves, but I think at some point in time, and to some degree, FY21, if that happened, you would be looking at operational cuts, and then they would magnify themselves in FY22. Because you would probably get down to the bare bones on capital. You'd be already taking money out of your reserves. You wouldn't have many places to look other than operations at some point. And, you know, that would be devastating to Long Meadow, and it certainly would change the complexion of this town kind of overnight.
Richard?
Is this the second year of the dual ambulance operation?
Yes.
So this 13 is not the first year of service, that increase, that 13% increase?
We've been increasing fairly steadily over the last 4 or 5 years. You have to recall that a few years back, we had some rate increases that the fire chief did with regional rates, and that was probably one of the bigger reasons why we had maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, why the revenue increased dramatically. But in FY, might have even been halfway through FY18, you may recall that we increased the firefighters, the number of firefighters. We did one at the beginning of the year and one towards the latter part of the year. FY19 was probably the first year you had a full full complement for the full year of those firefighters. And then, you know, again, FY20 is just going to carry forward.
How many years have we had dual ambulances on, though?
Oh, we've had 2 ambulances.
No, the 2 new ones.
2 new ambulances?
Yeah, we got 3 ambulances unless I got rid of the third one. When we purchased the other
No, we have 2 ambulances.
Okay, but we went out and purchased one.
Well, we started running them routinely, though, the second
Yeah,
one,
that's
just a
what I
couple
have.
years
We
ago.
started running 2 routinely with the increase in the firefighters' full-time equivalencies.
Right.
That's what I was
That was
referring to.
2 years ago.
We do
2
not,
years ago.
I don't think we have 3 ambulances.
No.
We had a third one at that
ambulance
time, you
yeah,
might have
but-
got rid of it now. It was a backup.
Okay, yeah, I mean, backup, or we will lend it to other
But we're
communities. that
running
are down.
2 full-time.
Yeah, we are running 2, we try to run 2 consistently.
Right. And
at
so-
this
And
point.
we're in, what, our 3rd year of operation then?
Right, well, he's-
I can't remember when we
I'd say
authorized.
2.5,
2.5, okay.
yeah.
Any other questions?
I had one other question, too. You alluded to revenues not matching on the daycare. How much of a shortfall did we have?
It was tens of thousands of dollars. It wasn't a tremendous amount. But, I mean, I make that statement, but at the same time, we have an appropriation for them. They would have turned back anything that they did not use in the appropriation.
Mhm.
So their expenditures equate to their revenues at year end. But when we.
But you were supplementing.
No, we didn't
With
supplement. We
appropriations.
had a higher appropriation. So if we appropriated, let's say, 380,000, but the revenues only came in at 350.
Right.
That's where it might have been stagnant, but since we appropriated 380, they returned $30,000 back to the general fund, because we had that money appropriated.
That's it.
Just because we have new people in the room here, I don't know if everybody's familiar with because we've all spent a lot of time spending time on Prop 2.5 cliff, but there is a group looking at the Proposition 2.5 issues, and hopefully there'll be some opportunities to, get local exemptions from that, which is really where we think the only way out of this is. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the groups put together a very, very long laundry list of items. And, everything from develop properties to find new, but as Paul indicated, it's $1.25 million, give or take, that we need. So, a $60,000 solution by developing a property doesn't do a whole lot when each year you gotta raise the number of $1.25 million. And so the approach is really a legislative approach. So if anybody wants more details, I can certainly provide them with them.
Yeah, please tell me how you're going to increase my taxes.
We're gonna continue to provide you services, Richard. Is what we're gonna
Increase
do.
my taxes.
Armin?
Yeah.
Be a good discussion.
I would just echo what Mark was just saying from a school committee perspective. I've been on conversations with both Senator Lesser's office and Representative Ash's office. I talked to Eric directly. We had a nice long conversation in regards to the issues directly affecting the town of Long Meadow. Brian's as well. Senator Lesser has extended his willingness to come to a future school committee meeting. We're targeting sometime in November, so we also would invite both the select board, the tax ceiling committee, and whoever else in the finance committee to join us in those conversations. And I know I think, Richard, you bring up a good point. It's very difficult to bring that up, even for them and amongst their peers, is who wants to be the senator from Lexington who, even though all they're doing is giving us our own personal opportunity to raise our own taxes to the standard of what we would want in this community, they can be seen by some groups as raising taxes, even though they're not actually raising taxes. And those are the difficult questions, I think, that are hitting our legislatures right now. Senator Comfort out of Northampton tried to put an amendment on the education bill to study the tax ceiling and how it affects uniquely Western Massachusetts communities. I called her office and had a conversation as well, and just said we were very interested in moving forward on that. So the school committee is actively looking into this, along with the tax ceiling committee and the select board and the finance committee. We took a vote at our last meeting to send letters out to our legislators as well. And I know we're going to bring that to the tax ceiling committee and to the select board for their endorsement as well. So thank you very much.
Armin, I just wanted to point out, when we talked about the new growth, the 250 was for FY '20, 150 for FY '21.
Thank you.
And again, the 677,000 that shows as a deficit, it's not anything new. It's where we have started in that vicinity years past. Numbers, they are conservative. They usually come in better. We'll knock on wood that they continue to come in better, but I don't want to alarm anyone and frighten anyone with those numbers, period.
Marie, I think for the people at home, it's also worth pointing out that, as part of the tax ceiling task force did a study on a bunch of different factors, and the issue in Longmeadow is 100% property values. It's got nothing to do with runaway spending. Our spending rate is amongst the lowest in the state. Our growth in spending is amongst the lowest in the state. Our new growth is the lowest in the state. Even the other areas in Western Massachusetts, the fact that we have a built-out community, we have little or no new growth. And so when you look at the growth, it's not there. And so it really is property values of your overall community, and you can trace it all back to the 2006 to 2010 or 11 period of time when there was a huge run-up in property values, particularly in the eastern part of the state. And you can certainly share those graphs with anybody who wants to see them, where everybody else went like this, and town of Longmeadow kind of just went up very slightly, and that's really the issue, is we just don't have the denominator of that overall, how much you got to raise divided by the property values, the sum of your property values, which makes the the quotient of too high a number.
And interesting from that conference where she was talking about discussing it during the school fundraising, is that 48 out of the 50 communities that have this problem are small communities in Western Mass. So they're all willing to sit and talk to us. So it's not the really high-end communities that are top rated. It's these small Pelhams. All of these towns need to work together with us. So I think the more we discuss, the more we bring it together, the more we'll come up with a solution for the towns, because the ceiling just doesn't work for the little towns. That will be more.
Well, the other thing too, and I can't close the meeting without saying that, I don't know if they have 20+% senior citizens in their community, but we do, and we're growing in more senior citizens. And I remind everybody, they're on fixed income.
Yeah.
They don't get 3% increase a year, 4% increase a year in a COLA and all this stuff. They're fixed income, period, right now. And I think that's a whole other avenue that I was hoping this task force would take on, is how do we provide opportunities to move these seniors into a community where they can live at a better rate and free up these homes so we can go through the revitalization of the homes there. And we have a lot of seniors, single seniors living in full ranch homes in our community right now because there's no place for them to go. What is it, a 3 to 5 year waiting window on the apartment complex down there? That doesn't work. So we've got a major void that we've got there that I've been trying to focus attention on, because I still think we have to do that before we do the other things. Because the seniors are still going to be there. We had these stories about people eating cat food. Well, presenting that option if the taxes keep going up. They are fixed income. Something will go by the wayside if they're going to have to pay their taxes.
Okay, so we have a lot of work to do.
I'm a lonely voice.
No, I don't think so. I think the task force is actually looking at properties in over 55 communities, so it is something that the task force is considering. Any other questions or concerns for Paul? No?
So Paul, what are your next, I was kidding Richard earlier, that every year we sit here and every year we're 600,000 in the hole in October, and every year so where are we going
Well,
from here?
We wait until the first round of draft budgets come in. We see where we are, and we make decisions of, where do we have to, where do we go from there? If we need to come back to the select board and say, can we reduce the OPEB contribution to 400,000 to make all this balance? It'll be a combination of those types of things. Does the select board want to continue with a 1.75 increase in revenues for the Prop 2.5, or can we go to 1.875 and cut that difference in half? May make a difference of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, but you start putting all those together, and that's how we usually balance it. Last year we didn't go up on the capital like we had planned on going to 3.25 last year. It's in the projection now. It's projected to go up, but at the same time, there'll have to be a decision made. Do we want capital, or do we want to let personnel go, or do we want to cut some type of program in some department? So, all that will develop over the January, February timetable, which, I'm sure the school committee will be developing, their budget at the same time. And we kind of have to wait and see. I don't think there's any magical area that we're going to, any one magical area that we're going to find that type of money. It's going to be a combination of a few things. Maybe health insurance won't go up 7.5%.
But we know pension is going up 8% because they guaranteed that.
Yes, the pension is, they have a actuarial study that says, and they're allowed to go up to 8%. So.
Tom?
Well, we did get some comments from the Finance Committee suggesting that we don't go up to full 2.5% and to try to cut that back. And, we're doing our best to do that. But I don't know if the Finance Committee would want to share anything about, those projections.
Well, the Finance Committee for the last several years once we've sort of gotten our head around the 2.5% issue, what we've been referring to as the cliff, several different approaches were talked about on how to address that. I mean, one of the finance committees, other than making the recommendations in the warrant, is we're supposed to be addressing long-term fiscal planning. And so one of the points of contention on that was whether the finance committee should take the position of reviewing line by line the budget and, for lack of a better phrase, micromanaging the budget, seeking to enforce, for lack of a better phrase, a sort of a soft veto on individual budget items. And it was decided that that was not the most productive approach. That a more productive approach would be to stay, to use a member of the select board who I won't name, phrase, in the lane, and focus on what the macro goal was, which was to stay as far away from the fiscal cliff as possible. And what we determined was, in discussions with Paul, was that a 10-year a 10-year cushion would put the town in a position where if there was some sort of fiscal difficulty or catastrophe, where, as you see in the projections that Paul's given you, that would draw us within just a couple of years of the fiscal cliff, where we would still have a few years, rather than a situation where we have this, where we're running right up against the fiscal cliff, and then we have some unforeseen circumstance that occurs, a storm or dramatic economic downturn, and then suddenly we're over the limit. And we have to have these dramatic, catastrophic cuts in services, in personnel, and so that was the approach that was selected, which is why the finance committee, I don't know, I guess a policy would be fair to, it has been to develop a spreadsheet where we can, based on a set of assumptions that Paul has been instrumental in developing, determine what percentage increase in the levy we can withstand and still keep the fiscal cliff 10 years away. And that has been the basic policy, which allows the departments to continue to do what they do and make the difficult choices as far as how to make that happen, as opposed to the budget, the line by line of the budget, and then attempting to get into a battle with the fire chief or school department about, well, why are you spending this much on light bulbs? Why are you, it just wasn't determined that was not going to be the most productive approach. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, because you had laid out some projections of what you thought we should have as our levy limit, or the amount of taxation. Should we do 2% or 1.85 or?
Correct, and so what I wanted to impress upon the selectmen is that number is a moving target, because there are different factors that happen each year, as I understand, that will change. So you may look at the projection that we were requesting for a particular year. It's not going to be the same next year, depending on different factors. It could be higher. It could be 1.75 is the number that the select board is determined to go with this year as a goal. I believe that may even be, it's certainly lower than the figure that we were projecting originally. But that doesn't mean that 1.75 would be the same figure next year, because we don't know what all the factors, how those factors are gonna pan out from Paul's perspective, and whether that levy limit target that we would request would even increase. There's no way for us to know that.
Mark?
Yeah, I think it's worth stating also, and I don't know if so much for the people in this room as the people who might be watching it, is that, if we get closer to this cliff, an option for the select board and for the town leadership is to move expenses out of the tax base into fee-based. And it doesn't save residents any money. It's an artificial means of escaping the, I know, Rich, it's an artificial means of escaping this cliff, because you're still raising your overall cost. But, we've started identifying those items that could transfer to fees, and it's no secret. I mean, trash collection, City of Springfield has fees, and we spend, $450,000, more than that, twice that, right?
Twice that.
Right, twice that. So that's just the collection, and then we have the disposal fees. I mean, so, there's $900,000 in just trash you can move into fees. Doesn't save anybody a dime, but it's an artificial, so there's, it's not a pleasant place to be, but there's ways around it.
Paul, we've been talking about this for 5 years, that I recall, and it seems to me that we're pretty well on the same projection we forecast 5 years ago. I mean, with that date. That date hasn't moved that much.
I think we've kept the gap.
Maybe 1 year.
I think we've kept the gap relatively the same, that 3 or 4 year window.
Yeah.
If you look back, and again, it's on one of the projections, that the increase in valuation, probably 3 years ago was, or maybe 4 years ago, went up 6%.
Right.
So that pushed us off maybe 2 years. Then the next year it went down by 0.5%.
I'm going to bail us out. I just built a shed.
Yeah. Okay.
And the assessor's already been to look at my shed, so you got a free ride.
Yeah, we'll go back again. And again, I think 2 years ago it might have been 4%.
Yeah.
That went up. So we've kind of kept that gap, like the 4 year gap, and it might have been pushed out a year because of. We have, over the last 4 years, had an average of something greater than 2.5% increases.
Yeah. And one closing note, you mentioned OPEB again.
Yeah.
And you said, well, we can take money from our OPEB contribution. I
didn't say we take money from OPEB, I said we reduce the contribution.
We reduce the contribution, excuse me. That's a polite way of saying we're going to raid the fund.
No.
OPEB, no.
It's not raiding the fund. It's taking money out.
OPEB is other post-employment benefits.
Yes.
That's what we pay our people when they retire.
Yes.
That's all the benefits, the insurance, and all that good stuff that goes to our employees, which is needed, and it's a promise that we've made our employees. We're presently how many million behind?
A lot.
Rough?
A lot.
Just a little.
35 million?
No, 20.
Between that and pensions, we're 60, 70 million.
Okay.
is unfunded.
And there are some communities that have been proactive and have been able to eliminate their OPEB liability and have trust funds now that are strong enough to meet the future needs of their employees.
There are probably 1 or 2 in the Commonwealth, yes.
Right, there are 1 or 2 in the Commonwealth that
Yeah.
bit the bullet. And that's why we, as a select board, we said, we're going to put, maybe you can consider it a token amount, but it was still, we're contributing to help our ratings.
Yep.
That we're being proactive in the management and recognizing that this is a factor. There's a lot of, he's grinning, there's a lot of.
We're either one of the 6 smartest or one of the 6 dumbest communities in the Commonwealth.
I've heard that before.
Been saying that for years, right?
I think we're some of the 6 smartest ones. But anyway, it's a major thing that we face in the future. It's inevitable. It's out there. It's also something, if you people have paid attention over the years, that has forced some states and cities to be bankrupt over, is their pension liability. It is the 800-pound gorilla in the room that's not going away. I don't think a state's going to bail you out. I don't think anybody's going to bail us out.
I don't think the state will bail us out. The retirement unfunded liability is a large number also.
Right.
But in that particular case, there's a funding schedule to eliminate that by 2036.
Mm-hmm.
If that ever does materialize where it's fully funded by 2036, you would probably see a requirement to start funding the OPEB.
Yeah.
And, it'll be past our lifetimes, 50 years past by the time that's fully funded.
Elijah Cummings, he made some comment about that as we dance with the angels, right?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
I had a question about the OPEB funding. Did we have an audit done where the auditors came and, correct me if I'm confusing, where they came and they determined that the amount that we were funding was actually, compared to most other towns, was actually pretty good?
I think when we compare ourselves to most other towns, we're probably ahead of the game because a lot of towns are not doing anything. So in that regard, I don't think it was an audit. I think it was just knowledge of what's going on in the Commonwealth. And Lynn, I don't know if you have any comment on that. But I think we're probably a little bit ahead of the game by funding our OPEB liability as opposed to just ignoring it like many communities are. I think a lot of the communities that are minimally starting to fund their OPEB contribution, and they may be ahead of us, but I think there's still quite a few that are just ignoring it.
There was one other thing with the I wanted to have a distinction between the 4 years and the 10 years. Am I correct in understanding that the 4 years that you're mentioning is with the assumption that we are going to always go to the full 2.5%?
Yes.
And the 10 years that we're discussing was with your budget assumptions of 1%?
Well, I don't recall if it's with 1% of new growth, but it's only like, what, 1.8% on an annual of the 2.5?
Yeah, 1.84.
1.84, so there's the combination of two factors.
They had 1%.
Yeah, 1% growth
1%
also.
growth, okay.
Right, so there are two factors in there that are not in what I'm projecting.
Okay.
In that top column anyway.
Right,
And-
so,
Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna, just so what we're talking about is, what the Finance Committee has been requesting is based on an assumption of growth and an assumption that we will not always go to the 2.5%. The 4-year fiscal cliff is based on the assumption that we will always go to the 2.5%, and then we hit the cliff in 4 years.
So there's just different assumptions that make that 4 to 10 years.
And also
That's
no
all.
growth.
Right, no, right,
growth.
I'm using no growth.
No
The other
growth.
one has a 1% growth.
And if you've written a letter to increase funding, which I think is a really important part of this whole formula, which the select board's gonna vote to support. And later on that, we're gonna talk about that, but that makes a difference. when
It
the
does,
state
and I know,
does it.
and I see in the budget, Paul, you put some conservative projections in there versus what we got this year for funding, so, that could change as well with the New Opportunity Act, so.
Yeah.
Definitely have to stay close to this.
Mhm. All right, so Lynn, you're gonna have lots of fun. Did you have any questions for Paul or anything?
I have so many.
Well, he said you'd really like one of these.
Yes, I would,
Yes. So, and it's supposed to be great reading, so they're out here if anyone wants a copy.
Well, they're gonna have to get them from my office, 'cause I don't have any more. Actually, if somebody could give one to Lynn now, I'm happy to
Oh,
replace
I'll give her mine. That's okay.
No, your chair's gotta keep hers.
Oh, I gotta keep mine? Okay, there you go.
It wouldn't look right for the chair.
All right, any other questions before we break? You guys are breaking up to your meeting again, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna
I need
finish
to
up
entertain a
ours.
motion to reconvene into A12.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for vote, all in favor? Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Bye. Thanks for coming, Lynn.
Discussion again.
You don't have to stay. We're gonna be a while.
Every year, we get.
Oh,
good
actually, can you
bureaucrats.
just stay for one thing, our next thing on
I
transition?
expect a different answer, and we don't get a different answer each time.
Okay, so we'll go right back into our select board meeting. I wanted to move down to transition. Come on, Tom. And so, Lynn, we were talking about when you're going to transition in, and we're going to, wait.
Hey, Tom?
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 Jake, yeah, there we go. You're going to be coming on November 12th? Okay. And Jay, you said you're going to stay around November 12th for a little bit?
I'll be here the 13th and the 14th.
Okay. So why don't you two work out on how you're going to do, work out that week?
How long do you think the gala for me leaving will be? What do you think it's 2, 3 days? I mean, I'm just trying to plan my
Oh,
schedule.
it's happy hour on,
It's a stopwatch.
It's just, time's up. Next. Well, so much for sentiment. Thank you so much for all of you. They're a great group to work for, really. You'll enjoy them.
now, we also made out a list of things that you might want to work with the department heads to get to Lynn.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Absolutely.
great.
Yeah. Or you can just wing it. It's only my motto.
Also, I've been sort of asking boards and committees to give you 30 days before they really jump on. Did you want us to get information on mission statements or what the committees are doing, or are you just going to go through this book first?
I've been following a lot of their agendas, so I have a fairly
Okay.
general idea of what they've been working on.
Okay. All right. And then also, we're having a reception for you at the Adult Center on December 4th. And then it'll be just the Veterans Group and December 4th, the Veterans Group, and then we'll move into the seniors in general down at the Adult Center. Then we're going to put together 2 other receptions for you, one with boards and committees, and then maybe for regional groups. And I'm still waiting to hear when the room is going to be available, but I was trying to push that out for December, so you'd have at least 30 days to get your feet wet before we start introducing you around and overwhelming you. If there's anything else you want us to do, just let us know. Anything else the board thinks we should look at in transition? No? Okay. But don't hesitate to call. Each of us have a different perspective. We see the elephant a different way.
Yes, I can imagine.
So be sure to sit down with each of us before you really hit town, or to call us or make arrangements, because each of us have something different to offer.
Great. My old card.
Yeah. And of course, the most important person will be Jay, who
Oh, my
has
God.
a objective view of all of us.
Very highly. Great group to work with. Actually, great group. A lot of fun. What?
Thank you.
I do have fun. That's my problem. Yeah. It's a character flaw, but I do. They're great to work with. It's a character You have a second I can talk
Yes,
about?
yeah. Thank you very much. I
Thank
look
you.
forward
Thanks
to,
for coming
seeing
by.
you all soon.
Okay. Thanks for coming down.
All right, so we already did the transition, we did the Dwight Road. A question about the senior abatement, we got that a couple of meetings ago. There was a discussion, we don't offer minimum wage. In town, we have a waiver for that, and one of the volunteers was saying East Long Meadow offers minimum wage. It was asking if we would consider increasing the rates. Paul, you said it would have cost the town an extra $7,900, was that?
What was requested to go to the $12.75 per hour would cost us a little over $7,600.
$7,600.
And that would to be able to maintain 20 slots at that rate for 100 hours.
And what I was surprised, I didn't realize, is there are many positions in town that do not have minimum wage. Because
Right, we
have a-
are exempt. You know, many of the summer programs that go on are not up to minimum wage. There might be a few at the library pages,
Recycle center.
potentially.
Yeah.
There are a number of non-benefited positions in town that are not at minimum wage.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think crossing guards are though, right? Aren't they
I think they
15?
are. They got a
Yeah.
pretty good bump a few years back.
Yeah. Mark?
One of the comments I've gotten from several people in town is discrepancies between Long Meadow and surrounding communities, but specifically in the area of the senior circuit breaker requirements. And the discussion I guess they had with Jim down at the DPW, down at the Adult Center, was that, you know, he's just the administrator, he doesn't set the policy, but, you know, it's a significant difference in terms of who's eligible. And you know, I gotta tell you, I don't know enough to know why we've set that as a requirement and what restrictions it does, but, you know, the number of people who have commented upon it seems to me that it would behoove, you know, certainly made it worth me raising the issue and maybe having us look into it if we or anybody else is is doing, you know.
Do you want to kick this out and look at circuit breaker at the same time? And look at both issues of the package?
But which, the other issue being what, the
Senior abatement, and then we'll just,
the minimum wage part?
the minimum wage part, and then circa breaker,
Well,
and deal with all of that at the same
I
meeting?
guess the better issue is, when's the last time we've had a review of our tax abatement policies, and is it time to just do that?
I think we did that a year ago, that we had the senior, we had a vote come in about the vets and
Well,
some of
that was
those
just
abatements.
But nobody went through the whole thing, I know, because we've talked to the folks down at the.
That senior issue's been brought before the board several times.
Do you want to deal with both issues and kick it out to another meeting, or does anyone want to do a
we want
vote
to kick it
now?
out to another meeting, or, I mean, I'd ask, you know, the expert on this, or the person most knowledgeable is probably the director of our adult services, you know, and see, you know, as opposed to him saying, you know, I'm administering it the way it is, I'm, not, you know, but maybe they ought to be doing the study rather than, they know more about it than we do. I'd love to have Jim come in here, or somebody
Okay.
from there come in here and say, you know, we've taken a look at it, we've looked at other towns, we've called other towns, you know, maybe we've looked at what the impact is, maybe we're gonna say, put a cap on it, whatever it is, but rather than have, you know, a bunch of people who aren't that involved do it, you know, I'd much rather sucker them into it.
Okay, Tom?
Yeah, I agree. I'm not really sure. When I was looking at the materials, I was trying to figure out who would be eligible, and unfortunately, there was nothing in there about how the circuit breaker sets its bar in terms of eligibility. And is the eligibility of that related to our community versus, you know, communities across the state in general? You know, how they look at that, because
All right, so let me bring Jim back in, and we'll ask Jim to give it, but is circuit breaker and
Circuit breakers
it's different?
Yeah, it is different. The circuit breaker is a state law, it's going to be the same for every community.
every community.
It's
So
the
what
abatement
is it that
program.
what is it that they're saying other, people who are eligible and would be eligible in surrounding communities aren't eligible here for some reason? And maybe I just don't know enough about it, Paul, but maybe that's the
I don't
thing
know, but
with
again,
that.
the circuit breaker is a state law, so I can't see
Yeah.
it being different between community to community.
Yeah.
This, however, might have certain things that are different. Again, the amount that we pay, as pointed out, was one of them. I'm not quite sure what the other differences are between the town of Long Meadow and other communities. I think that's what
Yeah, I
Jim would
think
have
we
to
gotta find
answer.
out. I mean, to me, it's a budget item. How much do we want to budget for senior circuit breakers, or for, not that,
Abatement.
for tax abatements, for senior abatements? And,
Right.
you know, right now, it's at whatever the.
We're at 20
cap-
grand.
How much?
It's 20 grand we basically
Right.
set aside.
I mean, you know, but for us to go up 22,000 or 25, you know,
Yeah.
go up a couple thousand, we may want to do that in the overall scheme of a $65 million budget. I'm just saying, yeah, Marie, maybe the thing to do is get Jim involved.
All right, I'll bring Jim in for the next meeting. Okay, I wanted to pull in that legislation that I had added to the agenda. There were two issues. One, we got an email, everyone got an email about a week ago, and then there was a follow-up email today on a letter. The undersigned mayor, city council, select board members ask you to support H 3976, an act promoting awareness of sewage pollution in public waters, and ask for its immediate sending to discharge from the House Ways and Means Committee. They said this letter of support has to go out before the end of October, because that's when they want to get it released. And it says it basically will address the lack of information about sewage spills and make public waterways safer. The other states around us already have a law where if there's a sewage discharge into the river, something that that must be, information must go out to the public, and Massachusetts doesn't have that. Is there does the select board want to support H 3976? Or do they not want to?
Frankly, I haven't read it. It came through an email, not in our packet, so I really didn't look at it,
Okay.
because I saw that maybe incorrectly, in the category of all the other emails we get, please support this, please push this, please push that.
Well, yeah, when I saw that there was a time limit to it, that's why I added it to the schedule.
And I guess my question is, how does this differ from any of the other, you know, legislative initiatives that we were asked to support? Not that I don't, again, I haven't read it, so I can't tell you whether I support it or not, but is this a,
Well, it says, I thought it was
we've-
fairly clear. It says, EPA recommends the public stay away from water contaminated with sewage for 72 hours, yet we in Massachusetts residents do not give residents the information and the safety precautions. So there's been several discharge into the Connecticut River, but there's never follow-up announcements like other states do. So this is basically just providing the public with information.
It seems
If
to me
there's-
this is motherhood and apple pie. I can't imagine the legislature's not going to approve it if it's, and
So
if they
did
don't.
you- does anyone
Again, I
wanna
haven't read
support it?
So I'm
No?
not prepared to today
No?
myself. but-
No. Because they
Okay.
want us to abstain as a town, huh?
Well, the email that came through said the deadline was like the 28th of October, which would be before our next meeting.
Before next meeting.
Yeah.
Well, what do we, now, we all individually got the email, so I wonder if it'd be appropriate for it to individually support it.
Well, we could do that. If there's no motion on the floor, I'll move it ahead.
'Cause I put a motion on the floor, but Mark hasn't
I
read
read
it.
it.
He feels it's a pretty common sense thing what they're asking for.
Okay, is there a motion or not?
Yeah, I'll put a motion on the table that we
Okay.
adopt.
Local elected officials.
Is there any discussion on it?
Can I read it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to spend some time reading it here?
No, I got it on the screen here. I just put it up.
We'll give it a few moments. While you're looking at that, I just want to say the other one was this one that I just received from the school committee, and it says it applauds the Massachusetts legislation developing Student Opportunity Act as response to the recommendations of the Foundation Budget Review from 2015. The bill successfully addresses the inadequacies of Chapter 70 Foundation budget. This could wait until the 4th, but I would like us to also send a letter to our legislative team to support the school committee's position on the Chapter 70 Foundation budget.
So why don't we just authorize the chair to send a letter, or do you want to vote?
Okay, well, first we'll have to decide on the other. Did you want to see this? Or did you get a copy,
Who's gonna
Tom?
copy? Let me take a look at it. I didn't,
All right, so we'll leave that motion on the table while you think about that, and we
So
could,
where are you, Maria? Which one are you on here?
well, I was just talking about the other one to give you time to read
Well,
the,
So I've read the letter, and I guess I'm concerned that the request is from a lobbying organization, not necessarily from, and I haven't seen the legislation, so I'm being asked to sign a letter supporting legislation based on their summary of the legislation as opposed to what the legislation really says. And personally, I have a problem putting my name on that because they're lobbying, probably very good, and it's probably very, very appropriate, but it's a lobbying organization. I have no idea what the legislation actually says. And short of that, that's my personal opinion, but if, I think we're better off doing it individually unless we get a look at the legislation for our next meeting. I don't know how many years ago.
Yeah, the deadline will be passed.
yeah, the deadline be passed.
Well,
Any
again,
other thoughts?
Well, I agree. I mean, this is what our local legislators are for, and they should, if they support these bills, we should let them know where we're at. Yeah, I got this email, and I didn't really think it was relevant to us, because it was from a lobbying group. And we get those, and I just didn't think it.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor. Did you want to keep the motion on the floor and go for the vote? Or does he want to withdraw the motion? Okay, any more
No need to
discussion?
withdraw.
All those,
Well, the
Yeah.
motion is that we
right, send a letter supporting the
Letter of support.
legislation
Well, it's not
to,
send a letter, it's send that letter that they sent us.
Yeah.
or we can send any letter we want.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
Jay, did you get a?
I did not.
You did not.
I just think it's unusual to be, but go, I mean, not,
I think we should
I'm
send
just
our
me.
own letter.
It's just me.
Okay.
Okay, so is there, the motion's on the floor. All those in favor of sending the letter?
Our own
All
letter?
those opposed?
Well-
Oh, wait, all those in favor of sending the
I
letter?
would say-
Four?
yeah.
All those opposed? Okay. And what about a letter mirroring the school committee's support of the foundation budget?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we mirror a letter to the school committees making adjustments to funding for school Chapter 70.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Okay. Can I have that back, Tom? So I
Yes,
can
you
get
may.
that out. Thanks. All right, so before, the last two things will be the DPW and Clerk of the Works, so let's go to the letter to Congressman Neal. I worked on a letter with other members of the board to Congressman Neal, and we did some changes, and so the letter with the changes I've sent to everybody, and I want to know if you want to take a look at it. You want to see my, oh, the letter? Oh, this?
Yes.
Okay, because I sent it
You
in
sent-
I sent the electronic version. If everyone could take a minute and review it and make sure I didn't make any mistakes. And if there's anything else they feel we've done incorrectly.
Well, Maria, you should also mention that the lawyers that we're working with reviewed this.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We were working on this with legal counsel. And the changes that we're looking at, we're looking to possibly approve the letter now pending legal review to make sure that the amendments and changes do not, that are approved by our legal counsel.
I mean, it's like wordsmithing, it's not.
Well, you
this isn't
can
the place to
wordsmith me away.
Yeah, but it's not, this
Yeah.
isn't the
It's
place
not,
to wordsmith.
it doesn't
I mean-
affect the material.
Right, I mean, you know, just the way it reads is a little stilted, because you're trying to do this while you're running a meeting, I guess.
Plus, it's me. I'm not that smooth of a writer. So let's give everyone a few minutes, too. And then, Jay, you're going to be up next.
I mean,
Okay, I'll just
Marie,
talk that out.
For example, in the fifth line down, it says, Long
Yeah.
Meadow believes it is an inappropriate, like I said, you know, I would put, believes its currently planned location is an inappropriate location, or is inappropriate, or something, you know,
Currently,
just because again, it's wordsmithing.
okay, well, make that
Long Meadow
change.
believes the current location is inappropriate,
Current location.
or proposed location. Maybe, that's what it should be. The proposed
Current-
location.
Current proposed
Location is
location.
inappropriate.
Is inappropriate, okay. Anything else?
No, it looks like you have everything in that we discussed.
This is how we did the contract. Wasn't pretty, but it got done, okay.
Yeah,
Currently.
Marie, yeah, it says, Long Meadow believes the current proposed location is inappropriate.
Believes, wait, just a minute. The
Long Meadow
current, believes the current,
The currently.
The
or
currently-
Either the current or currently
the
proposed.
current proposed,
Location is inappropriate, and it would have been better cited, or it's some, again, it's just a
inappropriate.
stilted.
Yeah.
Read it out, if you read it out loud, it just sounds goofy.
and, I added the, because you said you got to specify what you're talking about.
Right.
And would have been better cited
Right.
in an open, non-residential open space.
You know, I mean, I would say, put down a gas metering station would have been better cited. You know,
Okay.
getting really specific.
Okay, a meter station, natural gas meter station would have been better cited in a residential,
No, in an open space in a non-residential area.
oh, so the way I said that wasn't awkward. I
No,
thought you
that's
were
fine.
saying it was.
No,
Okay.
that was fine.
All right, so this site, okay, Long Meadow believes the current proposed location is inappropriate and a natural gas meter station would have been better sited in an open space in a non-residential area. So that is different from what is in front of you now. I can sit, if there's any other changes before I send it out to everybody, take your time, read through it. And of course, this will be cleaned up with appropriate heading. And was there an agreement that we send our own? I mean, this is a letter to the congressman, but do we send our own to the board, FERC and EFSB? We'll send it to EFSAB, but the question is, do we send our own to FERC now? And do we ask Senator Markey or Senator Warren? Senator Warren's probably busy, but.
Yeah, a little busy.
So is Senator Markey at this point, too.
Yeah,
Running
Yeah,
for
but
his life, Jay.
he's a little more interested in Massachusetts right now.
So in our numbers towards the bottom, we have 1 through 5, and on number 3, talks about enhanced safety procedures for inspection maintenance, where we mandated safety reports, including error testing, must be given to the host town annually. And do we have to say,
And of course, that second part, nothing can go to EFSB now, because there's no actual application in front of them yet.
right, okay, because in terms of environmental assessment, if they have a new if they change the location, I guess I'm just trying to see how, the request for environmental assessment could be in here in the letter that he's requesting.
Whatever, Tom, I think it's, whatever you want to do, I think it's fine the way it is, but go ahead. Marie, the only question I have is the signature. If you
Well, I
type
was
in
going to
the-
have us all sign.
Oh,
it.
okay, all right.
Yes, I was going to have separate lines for
Okay.
each of us to
Good,
sign.
all right,
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
That's why I said it's got to be cleaned up, the headings
okay,
and
okay.
everything, and.
Yeah.
All right, so if there's any other minor change that does not affect the material meaning of the letter, and someone, oh shoot, my thing's just, my battery's dying. I will let you know if there's some grammatical or something change, but this is the gist of the letter. Is there a motion to approve this letter being sent, and the question is to,
I move we approve we approve sending this letter in its current form to Congressman Neal,
okay, pending legal review?
Yeah,
pending legal review.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor? Now, is there a interest in sending this to Markey?
Yeah, I think so.
What the heck?
No, I think he should be, I mean, luckily, he knows our community in a sense, because when we had the difficulty with the railroad crossing where a person who was working for the town was hit by a train that was plowing during the snowstorm, Senator Markey did mention that in a pretty major meeting on the floor, in the Senate. And so, yeah, maybe he would be interested in helping us with this also.
Sure,
Okay,
I'll make a
and-
motion to send the same letter to Senator Markey.
Okay.
I'll
So,
second that.
so I'm actually having coffee with one of his reps Thursday.
Ooh.
So I just.
But is it a different hat?
What's
Are
that?
you gonna have to
No,
change
it's-
hats
I don't know.
mid-time?
Probably.
That's-
Probably. So I can like hand it early.
Oh, that would be
before you do
fabulous, but we gotta get it all signed. Everyone's gotta be able to sign it, so everyone's gotta go by, when are you doing this?
It's Thursday.
Okay, so everyone's gotta come by Town Hall tomorrow. Is that possible to get a signature?
Got to get it approved first. the
Okay.
legal team.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sending it right now to her.
Okay.
Okay, so is there a motion on the floor for Mark to do his thing? It's closing.
For,
Well,
yeah,
there's one motion on the floor now. Mark, you put
We
a
already,
motion.
yeah,
no.
to send
We
it
haven't
to
voted on
to
the
Markey, how it
No,
gets there.
we voted on the
Right, but I made
Richie
a
Neal.
motion, to send it to Markey.
Is there a
And
second?
I second it.
All those in favor? All right, how about us sending our own letter to FERC? Because we're asking Neil to contact FERC.
Right.
Should we be contacting FERC?
I think the nature of the letter to FERC is a little bit different, though.
Okay.
I mean, it's, here's what we want to do, as opposed to tell FERC to.
Oh,
so
yeah,
we have
oh,
to-
definitely.
It's
So,
got the same content, it's just in different,
So would it be a
passive voice.
select board letter, or would it be individual letters from the select board?
I think
I
that
thought
it
it'd be
needs to be a
select
vote of
board.
the
If we
select board.
have, if the select board's all agreeing to it, I think it's more powerful if it's a whole letter
Yeah.
from us.
Well, select board members usually don't stand as a select
Yeah.
board member alone anyway. They're part of the.
That's what I was at.
Yeah.
So the question is, and that's of course a pending approval of attorney,
Right.
is there a motion for us, the select board, to send a letter?
I think we should make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second. Rich, go ahead. Rich.
Discussion? Okay, and the only thing I'm going to say is, again, that's grammatical changes. I will send it out to everyone and the attorney.
Did you get
If
Warren?
there's a huge, huh?
Did you get Warren?
I think we should send it to
Why
Elizabeth
not?
Warren.
Why not?
Yeah, okay. Well, okay, so this one,
can't tell.
I'll send out to everyone, make sure there's no major crisis with it.
So is the text of the letter going to Markey and to?
We heard that, we heard that.
Is it going to be the same? Are we sending the same letter?
Well, it's not gonna be the same, because we can't say,
I'll send it.
please contact FERC.
Right.
It's basically the first half of the
Oh,
letter,
yeah.
saying,
We're working
these are
down
our
that list.
concerns.
We're
So,
up the list of
I would just be
Pompeo
editing
and-
it to make it reflect that, show that to our attorney. And if that goes through, does the select board approve that to go out?
Okay.
Yeah, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. Now, Warren, okay, do we send
All
the
those
same
in
thing to
favor?
Warren?
It's pretty busy.
Is there a motion?
Yeah, there's a place motion we sent to Senator Warren.
It can't
I'll
hurt.
second it.
Is there a second? Okay, a discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, we went through it very carefully. So let me send this out to you, and this is going to the, please review. Again, I will let you know after review from our legal team and where that stands. And Mark and I will be letting you know, because I'm going to keep Mark in the editing phase, so you're in charge of helping me write
You
this.
go, UCC our local representatives.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. We should CC.
Okay.
To Eric Musser.
The one we're writing.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
the one we're
all right.
sending to Richie Neal.
All right, that makes sense. All right, so I'm sending this to everybody. If I've made a mistake, let me know. Again, this is not going to be until we get the confirmation from our attorneys, which I hope will be in the next 24 hours. We'll know what's going on.
Have you, Jay, have you started capturing stuff like this and shipping it off to Jill to get her coming up to speed on some of these
Nope,
issues?
Lynn.
Lynn,
Excuse me.
I have not yet, no. But I'll start with Jill, and then I'll, you know, if she likes it, then I'll trade it.
Okay.
I have not yet, but we,
Send it to Lynn, right?
I have not, but I will, we did talk a little bit about how, she's gonna be on the email, so we'll be able to communicate back and forth on stuff, so we'll bring her up to
Yeah,
speed. Not a
make sure you send one to Lynn, too.
Lynn, Jill,
Lynn, Jill.
what's in the name?
All these women, okay. Jay, you want to talk to us about the clerk of courts? Clerk of the works?
Clerk of the works.
Yeah.
Maybe the clerk of courts. So I just want to take the thank you for just an opportunity to suggest that the board consider the possibility of including in the warrant article for the, involving the DPW building, having some funding for a clerk of works on site. This is a public construction project of going to be, assuming the appropriations approved, somewhere around $22.5 million. There is no designated clerk of the works on site. This is, and I'm talking specifically on the DPW, although I could obviously make an analogous argument on the adult center, although that has been, at this point, a little bit more low-key. But it's taxpayer money, $22.5 million. There's a lot happening. There is a lot going to be happening over the next few months. And to have a presence on site who is at a minimum part-time, but at least on-site, who is there every day, who is reviewing the work of the contractors, the subcontractors, accounting for them on-site, being there in case there are questions with regards to changes, being able to monitor those in the conversation with the engineers on a regular basis. Would mean perhaps that the town would be well-served by having somebody there. Right now, Colliers is providing some clerk of the works services, I would say probably a couple of hours per day, but it is basically on their management contract. It's not really a specific clerk of the works, other than the fact that they felt that the project benefit having somebody there, so they bring somebody on for a couple of hours. The ballpark number they gave me when I talked to them about a month ago about the idea was, at that time, probably about $80,000 for 4 hours per week, 4 hours per day on site at the DPW. I would say that the number could be at this point, 75 or 70.
I'm your guy.
Huh?
I'm your guy.
So we can take applications here also, and then we can move that through. But the idea was that Colliers is not doing clerk of the work on site. They're coordinating with regards to the work. They're advocating on behalf of the, or they should be, advocating, I think they are, advocating on behalf of the town relative to trying to keep the project moving, but they are not there as part of their contract on their day-to-day. So I just present it to you as a possibility.
We mentioned this before. I swore I read the contract, and there was a bid item in that contract for clerk of the works.
I went back through it. I thought there was, to be honest, I thought there was too, and I went back and looked at it.
I know there was.
But I didn't
Whatever
see it, and
I read.
I raised it again with Adam. Today, actually, I went back and I said, correct me on this. Do you have a contract that identifies clerk of the works? And he said, no.
Well,
I
I
said, then how
wondered-
are you doing it? He said, we're doing it on the basis of our management fee, and then we're just picking it up because the thought was we needed it. But I did think that too. I went back and looked at the contract the other night, though, last week, and I didn't pick it up.
Bid sheets where I found it.
It could be in the bid sheet,
was
but in
on
their
the bid
proposal, it wasn't, and that's not in their contract
Okay,
specifically.
maybe that's where I'm confused.
That could
it
be
was
where
on
I
the
saw it
bid.
too. Yeah, that's
It
probably
wasn't
where I
picked
saw it.
up- It wasn't picked
Yeah.
up as an ad alter.
No, it wasn't
And
added as one of the.
Why in the devil it wasn't picked up is defies all
You would
logic.
have a better
Join
sense
us,
of.
I have to honestly say, from the very get-go, my involvement in the DPW project specifically, when we got that off the ground, or didn't get it off the ground, as the case may be, I have felt that we have needed a clerk of the works on site, and, clearly, I think, had we had a clerk of the works prior to this period of time, that would have been beneficial. That being said, once Colliers was awarded the second contract for the adult center, that is when they started sending someone, Ray Morgan, to the site. And he is there for a few hours each day at each project. I have to say I have been very impressed with the reports that he issues on a daily and a weekly basis, copies of which I get, and I'm not sure, Marie, if you get those copies. Jay, you get
does,
them, right?
yes.
I've been very impressed with his thoroughness, and he attends all of the construction meetings. I am not sure, quite frankly, the town needs to spend the $80,000, even though, as Jay said, under a municipal project, it certainly would have been prudent to have had one on site specifically for the DPW from the get-go.
I think we've come a long way in the
We have
project in
come a
the last
long
few
way with
months,
the
I would
project.
say.
It's almost like putting the cart behind the horse.
We have really worked with
Ahead of the
regards
horse.
to getting reports on a regular basis. We have held, I think, the entities more accountable. I think we have, whether they want it or not, forged a stronger working relationship with Colliers. And as Mary Beth says, they are providing a couple of hours a day on each site. Ideally, that's not what you'd really want, but they are doing it, and I think, we've really worked with them to get them into doing weekly reports and also daily reports. So there's certainly substantive effort there, and it's not as if that's not where you want to include it, that I don't think we're going to be left without having daily presence on site and this and that. It's just, it's a limited presence. And so I just make you aware of it for your consideration.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add, though, a full-time clerk of the works on each project would provide the town with some degree of comfort that, for example, when the hardware comes in for the doors and the spec calls for X, that the clerk of the works is there to make sure that we're getting exactly what was spec'd out in the contract, and we're getting the number of those items that was spec'd out in the contract.
Well, we've
I don't
only
believe
talking
the
about
representative
DPW.
that we have on site now, who's representing us now, would necessarily give us that. Whether or not that's worth $80,000 is your call.
Yeah.
Isn't that also quasi duties of the OPM, though?
It is not the duty of an owner property, OPM, to count the number of doorknobs that come in.
Right.
It is just not their job, nor to check the spec from that
Right.
box, that it ties in with the spec on the claim.
Or when they're digging and they claim, the contractor says, so we went down 4 feet.
Right.
And you don't have anybody
Well,
there.
how, you know, what I'm puzzled is how could we have had an OPM firm awarded a contract that didn't have a clerk of the works in it? I just can't understand how it could have ever happened.
Well,
Why would an OPM have
I
been
agree with you. I
authorized?
think it probably was in the solicitation, but in their presentation and the contract that was signed, I don't see any evidence that that was an obligation. There's nothing there that says that they will provide a clerk of the work for X number of hours or anything like that.
But it even helps the OPM.
Well, I want to say this is only DPW, and we're still dealing with asbestos every single week.
Yeah.
This is not going to end.
Well, the clerk of the works is not going to stop the asbestos.
No.
No, but it could be measurement, careful
they're-
measurement
they're-
on who's
they're not-
working
they're
and
not
what's
doing
being
that.
done.
They're
If I can just correct that, the DEP generally is involved in the measurement of the quantity of that's pulled out, et cetera.
Right.
So there's representation representing the town and the best interests of the residents.
Yeah, clerk of the works
from there.
records stuff that takes place during the day and can.
That's correct.
But doesn't actually get involved in the.
Right.
Yeah, but
Right.
what we had was, remember they said, oh, well, we're never going to go over this amount, and then all of a sudden, the amount of trucks that were
Well,
flying out of
but
there
Maria, it was
increased.
gross mismanagement on their part. I mean, it was just, it's gross mismanagement.
But would they deal with that at all?
I think had
And
we
who's
had a
working
clerk
on
of the
the
works
site?
on, you're talking about one particular incident where there was a time and material work order
Yeah.
that had been authorized, and they exceeded the time and material. Clearly, if we had had a clerk of the works on site, and quite frankly, clearly, if the contractor had been more aware at the time that the job was taking place, that he was going over the allocation that had been approved by the select board, and took more seriously the up to but not to exceed number, then we wouldn't have had that situation. Unfortunately, we were at the beginning of the project, and they had started removing, there's no question that the work had to be done. I mean, it wasn't like they would, they could have stopped work, waited a couple of weeks until it went through the process and you approved the additional funds, and then they'd have to remobilize, go back there and move it. They felt that it was in their best interest and perhaps the town's best interest to move it at that time, and I think that you ultimately agreed with that. So
It was a lack of supervision.
I agree with you, I absolutely agree with you, Richard,
Yeah,
that
total
it was
lack of
supervision on the top part of the contractor.
Because you had contractor here, and contractor B was over here doing the job, and contractor A wasn't watching B. I mean, it was their fault 100%.
No question.
It was no
But
fault on our own.
ultimately, you did approve the additional funds.
Yeah, but even a clerk of the works, if they were only there for, say, 3 or 4 hours a day, they wouldn't have even caught it. Unless there was some.
They probably would not have caught it, you're correct.
Right, unless they were coming in, they'd have to be there 8 hours a day, counting each load going in and out.
Right.
That was a contractor. I mean, they were under bid to move
contractor
X
did
amount,
not oversee
and
that.
they hit that limit, and they didn't stop, period. And we paid them.
So is there a feeling we need a clerk of the works on DPW only? This is what
Clerk
we're
of the
talking
works is, well, they're valuable.
You still have, you're looking at a project that will go until June or July to complete. And then you've also got the phasing out at the end of the day with regards to all of the punch list items that are going to be in there and this and that. So I think it's really your call. I mean, there's an opportunity if you want to, if you're comfortable with where we are, because I do believe that we've made some real strides in creating structure here.
And accountability.
Absolutely, and accountability. And we do have services there that are there right now. So there are a variety there's structure there that was not there before. But I just thought, well, we have the opportunity while you're looking at this and looking at this project to make the last appropriation for this, that recognizing there is still several months to go here for construction, to at least make you aware of the possibility of that.
Would you say it's
And I-
running much smoother now?
Oh, hands down.
Oh, yeah.
No, there's no
It is.
question. But, for the most part,
Yeah.
we've dealt, for the most part, not all of the part, we've dealt with the asbestos. But we are just really starting construction on both projects.
Yeah.
We are just starting construction.
And on both projects, there will be further problems. No construction project goes completely smoothly. Disregard the asbestos.
Right.
There's going to be hiccups along the way. They will not be as expensive as the large hiccup we had or have with the asbestos, but there will be issues in the future. Because
And there'll also be I was just going to say, the other thing is, there's not a single contractor who's on that site. There's various times it's going to move, as we're even seeing now, occurring now, you'll have a multiplicity of contractors on there, the various subs as well as the GC.
Who would the clerk work for?
I'm sorry, who?
Who's the clerk going to be employed by?
Colliers.
Colliers?
I have some concern about that if you were to decide you wanted to go with the clerk of the works. It is an awfully closely held, it's almost, it doesn't feel really good. You've got Colliers doing 2 projects. They're also doing the end wrap-up work, that they were awarded. You might consider going to another party as a clerk of the works.
I would agree with that. I spoke too fast. The price I got was from Colliers. But there is a value of having your own clerk of the works separate from, and that could simply be included as part of the funding in there, and then the town goes out and hires a clerk of the works. That's fine, yes, that's fine.
Tom?
Yeah, I guess my
That was a good
question would be that, do we have anybody who already works for the town who has significant contractors' experience, that works for Mario or some other part of the town? I don't know.
I mean, the only one that has done anything like this, I don't think, Paul Healy, but, I mean, he's involved with the building trade.
Right.
He would probably be the most qualified I could think
He's
of.
got a job already.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right, yeah, he has a job, I can't.
If you take it out of
can't be at
anybody
both sides
currently, it's something
full-time.
else that's not going to get addressed.
I just want to clarify something. The price that they quoted to you is
Yes.
for 8 hours a day at both, so 2 different individuals?
No, originally they gave me 160 for 2.
Yeah.
But
Well, if they're not
I
looking,
choked on that,
if
so,
you're not looking
I'm
at
fine.
full-time for $80,000,
No, we should.
full-time at the adult center and full-time at the DPW, then why do more than what we already have?
Well, there's nothing
We're
wrong
just-
with us doing our own and just saying,
Yes,
this
right.
is what we're going to do. Thank you for your vote,
But we're
your
only
number.
talking about DPW, we're not talking about adult center.
I'm using only DPW at the moment because there's an article on the warrant, that's all.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. My only question is the operational or reporting, so and I think we ought to be hiring
Yeah, I
that
do too.
person.
I
And then
like
the
that,
question
yeah.
is that like, the town's spy in on, and are they gonna be on the outside looking in, and who do they report to, and how do they communicate their findings, if it's to us or to Colliers or to the building committee or the?
I think it would be right there. The
Manager and the building committee is
town
probably
manager, and
Right.
then us.
perfectly fine, yeah.
Okay.
So
I do think, you're talking about the DPW, I do think if you're going to go along the line of using an individual, you should have one for both properties.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you're still spending millions of dollars on the
Yes.
other property too.
Yes.
They're both
Right.
equally as important.
Oh, they
Yeah,
are.
But we're
That's right.
talking about bigger problems at DPW.
It
and
doesn't matter.
But you know,
Clerk of the
but you're gonna
work-
prevent big problems at the.
Right.
You're missing the
adult center.
clerk of the works job. They're recording daily stuff.
I mean, if you
They're
think of
there
it,
besides the
when
problem.
I came in August, it was the adult center where the issues were with regards to fencing
Right.
that was going on, and hazardous waste and things like that removal. So those were the initial ones that
And
we
there's a
had.
lot more reasons for screw-ups on the adult center with the finishings and everything else. That one's gonna have to be watched pretty close.
But you're talking then 160.
No, I'd be fine with 75ers and just say, here's a good job. They can go back and forth, whatever they want.
So you'd split it between the two.
I would say, I think I think you would benefit from having a clerk.
And would this person be able to meet with the person who's currently doing the work from Colliers, like a couple hours a day, and then do the rest?
What could happen is have Collier's person there, from 9 to 11
Yeah.
at the adult center, and from, 11 to 2, the clerk of the works is there. Could be worked out like that.
You can coordinate that out.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds better.
So are we looking for a vote on clerk of the works?
Well, I think the question is, can we include that in?
Yeah, you can include it in the amount. There's a warrant article for additional money for the DPW, would just be added to that.
Now, the only issue there is if you want to use it also for the adult center.
Adult center, it wouldn't fit into that article, but
I would say, frankly, at this point of time, there's probably money in the allocation, the appropriation for the adult center
Yeah, so
to
there'd
cover
be
the
no
cost
problem
of,
then.
yeah, because there was a,
So if you just included hypothetically then 35 or 40,000 in that article, then given that, if it passes, assuming it passed, then come together and start to move forward to bring somebody on board.
So is there a motion to hire a clerk of the works for the DPW and adult center?
The only thing that I'm
Please.
afraid of
Yeah, go ahead.
is that this article for, right now it's $1.1 million.
Yep.
And it is, I imagine it's, well, it's hopefully going to be debt excluded without going back to the voters. And that would require approval from the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue has certain criteria that they look at, and environmental concerns is one of them. And I don't know if this is going to fall outside of their approval process, this 35 or 40,000, how that's going to impact their decision.
What if you just decide to take the appropriation you have right now and then revisit the budget and see if you can carve it out, then you
yeah,
don't
if I could
need-
also make the comment that we are also, if this passes the town vote, the contingency is fully funded.
Right.
We're back to square one with the contingency on the DPW, so there is room in
There's
there,
room there to
obviously,
make
there's
it,
room in
yeah.
there to cover the cost. I don't think it has to be
Just redo
added
the
to
budget
this
and slightly,
requested
right?
allocation.
Couldn't you do that?
So we could leave it at 1.1?
Yes,
So-
Yeah,
if that's.
Okay, no,
that's what I
okay.
thought. Leave it
I
there.
think we can do
I
that.
thought you were going to add to it.
Originally, we were thinking, but
That's fine.
why make it complicated? It's the same
Right.
thing as if you're saying the adult center might have resource. I mean, this is a $22.5 million project. We're talking about 35,000 in
Right.
the overall scheme.
Well, I'm not talking about the adult center, I'm talking about the DPW.
Right,
Yeah,
under the
okay. So,
DPW,
okay,
the
as long as
request-
If contingency is the
Taking all,
source.
everything into consideration, we are refunding the contingency and a
I'm good.
$40,000 amount out
Just
of that,
redo the
I think
budget on that
is
on that
probably
project.
doable.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I'm good.
And in that 1.1 that the building committee is recommending, although quite frankly, I was originally and still remain an advocate of slightly more than that, there is some room there for what I would call surprises, the things that we don't know today that could arise in the future.
Okay, so.
And I think you want that protection.
So the warrant article, so what we would need to agree on is that the warrant article.
No, we don't need to
No,
talk
we don't
about
need
the
to.
warrant article. We're just talking about the clerk of the works now.
No,
If
we
you don't
wouldn't
have any-
have to
Article will be
put
done.
clerk of the works in there?
No.
If, I would say that if you don't have any objection to it, if the article passes, we would then meet and see if we could carve out the clerk of the works out of the two funding sources that are already
Right.
there, with the resources. So that would not even be an issue. It's just a revision of the project budget on both sides, that's all.
So is there a motion to bring in a clerk of the works for the
So
two
moved.
building projects?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
We'll just use it as a sense of direction for us.
Okay,
That's fine.
all those in favor?
Great.
All right,
Great,
thanks.
thank you.
Now let's get to the warrant.
There you go.
And we'll get to that warrant article.
Okay.
Do we need to vote on every single article? Where are we standing with that? Because we went through, we haven't.
Can't you,
Okay.
can you adopt the warrant as it's presented, as of this
We
date?
did
No,
vote a lot of
there's
them.
certain things that are on here
We
that
did
need to
vote
be
on
addressed.
Okay.
several.
Okay.
But I don't remember which one.
Paul, I don't remember which ones we voted on.
I don't think you voted on any of them, quite honestly.
I think we reviewed each of them. I don't think
Right,
we
I don't think it was a
voted.
formal vote.
Okay, is there a vote to approve Article 1 on CPC?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Article 2, in regards to pavement, $15,000 for payment.
For the study, right?
For the study.
Yeah, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay.
I'm opposed.
Oh, one opposed. Article 3, town will vote $45,000 to the operating budget for firefighter salaries. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? To see if the town will appropriate for the operating budget service debt on the Council on Aging facility for $390,000.
For principal.
Article 4,
Okay.
for debt service on the bonding of the new Council on Aging is not a part of the original FY 2020 as the exact timing of the borrow has been determined. So is there
You
any,
just got to pay for this year's interest on the bond.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's all it is. We've
And
done this before.
I'll revise the explanation since we did go out and borrow at this point in time.
is there a motion?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Article 5, appropriate the sum of $100 to close the books.
79 cents. please.
79 cents, yes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor of Article 5? Article 6, for the LED lights, the appropriating of the $155,000.
This is actually taking the premium for the 4 authorizations that we just did, taking the premiums, applying it to the project, and rescinding the, by the same amount, rescinding the unauthorized, or rescinding the authorized vote to a lower amount so they can't be reissued. Now, the only question that I have here is that it only mentions 2 of the 4 projects. As an example, it doesn't mention the Council on Aging. Those were actually voted on in Article 4 of last year's fall town meeting. And I don't, it might be better if we just add them into here to be specific.
Okay, so we're
But-
talking about the spending of the premium on the bonds.
We're talking about spending of the premium again, that we address it. We do not need to go back and do the Council on Aging again, nor do we need to do Morningside. Those were addressed in a previous article last year, but I would feel more comfortable putting them back in.
Okay, so you're talking about adding the DPW premium payment on the bonds?
No, not the DPW, the Council on Aging.
Only the Council on Aging,
And the Morningside.
Morningside.
Right, that would be, those would be the 4 issues that we just authorized.
So it would be Morningside, it would be the COA, that would be the LED lights, and what else is the 4th one?
The LED lights, the capping of the landfill,
Capping the landfill.
Council
okay.
on Aging would be added, and the Morningside project.
Okay, and so you will make those corrections
I'll
in
make
the
the
writing?
corrections that we will utilize the premiums and we'll reduce the amount authorized appropriately.
And you'll send that rewritten article out to us. And when does Finance Committee get all this?
Finance Committee has reviewed all this, and they're to make the recommendation on the floor for this particular article.
Okay, so you'll have to send the new writing to them.
Right, they're meeting Friday. and they
Okay,
will-
so
and they
they'll
will
get the
have it.
Article 6.
Right.
Is there a motion to approve Article 6 with the additional 2 projects added to it?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Article
Marie,
7.
before we, what's the process going to be for this now revised warrant article to get, A, back to the select board, get documented that we revised it, and get to the finance committee in its revised form?
Well, Paul's got to get it to us. You said the Finance Committee's meeting Wednesday?
No, the finance, the warrant has to be posted tomorrow,
Okay.
okay? I would make, it actually wouldn't come back to you, Mark, but I would put in those amounts relatively in the same verbiage. The only thing that would change would be the specific authorization and the amounts.
Okay.
We don't have to do it, bond council has already ruled, we don't have to put it in, they wrote this article. Again, but because of all the controversy around premiums, we'll put it in.
All right, and you'll be sending us the rewriting tomorrow because you've got to finish it tomorrow.
We can send you the rewriting tomorrow, once, yes, I'll address it tomorrow morning first thing. Like I said, it has to be posted tomorrow.
Okay, so get that out to us tomorrow morning. And everyone check their emails for that. Okay, Article 7,
Article 7 is one of those, again, every year I'm going to try to use the full levy capacity. Recently, I've been voting down. This is actually using the full levy capacity. It no longer raises only 2 of the 2.5%. It raises the full levy, and it would go into the operational stabilization fund. And this is something that I recommend every year, but
And Marie, just for, I vote, and I speak against it every year because I think the intent is we're not going to tax people to the full 2.5%. And so therefore, we don't need to raise $240,000 to put it into the Operation
okay,
Stabilization
so is there
Fund.
a motion to approve this? No?
I
Okay.
would also say that we shouldn't even take the chance that the community did approve it, because it would just bring us closer to that.
Okay.
No, I'll place a motion to be approved. Let's get a vote on this.
All right, is there a second? No? No second?
You know, you should always second a motion for a vote.
Fine, I'll second it for a
Okay.
vote. Richard,
Just let it go to a vote.
All right. All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay,
That was good.
yes. Well, that's it, you're right, get it done. Article 8, the town will vote to transfer the funds, $175,000, for the cleanup cost for the microburst.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Just to ask, are you getting, is there an opportunity for grant reimbursement on this? Or
No.
grant reimbursement?
No, there's no
We
meeting.
asked.
Nothing?
Right, it has to be, I think minimum has to be over $250,000.
Seems like a good question.
It's a good
It is,
question.
right, but, yeah, not a good
The
result.
the fire chief has tried.
I know.
All those in favor?
Who seconded it?
I did.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, Article, where are we? Article
Nine.
No,
The-
9.
The only thing that I want to point out to you in Article 9 is that the amount has been reduced from previous amounts. It used to be $250,000. We signed contracts with Tie and Bond prior to the bond authorization for the closing of the landfill last May. All those contracts are going to remain in the DPW project. It's about $124,300. And the 124, and so everything else after this authorization will now go against the capping of the landfill. So 124 from the original budget, or the original overages, the original cost was 800,000, you may recall. Then the price, once all the bids came in, went up to $1,050,000. We have $800,000 appropriated in a bond issue. $124,000 is going to stay and coming out of the DPW, and this is the remaining amount that needs to be appropriated to cover the full $1,050,000.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve Article 9?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
In discussion, I want to say, I did finally hear back from Pat Carnival and the governor's office. He said if we want to get the $3 million reimbursement, he will be talking to us in February because the money's released in March and April. So nothing will come out till
So
March
it's
and
coming out of
April.
the bond issue.
Yeah, but he said he will definitely work with us, and he's going to mention to the governor this week as the importance that Long Meadow needs the $3 million.
Good.
So, all those in favor of Article 9? All right, Article 10, transfer available funds, sum of $100,000 to legal expenses. Is 100 enough?
I don't think it is.
Should we go to 150? Do I hear 200?
Yes.
This is the one that
Legal.
started out as 10,000.
Yeah, exactly. So this is for the, what do you call it? Gas metering issue as well as the DPW legal fees. So if we put it 150, where's that money going to come from, Paul?
We would have to reduce Article 14, which, puts the amount of free cash over $500,000 left. It would have to be an offset to Article 14.
Okay.
What's the downside of authorizing $100,000 and going back if we need more later? I mean, are we absolutely certain it's going to be over that?
Well, is it going to be, will we be spending that before next May?
Did their budget have a timetable? I don't know.
I don't know where
I mean,
Quinn stands,
It was
I
a
think
quick,
it
a quick
depends on the
25.
events. I don't know
Yeah,
about their-
it was a quick
yeah.
25-30 that went.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be looking at two potential lawsuits.
Just tell him he's going to get paid after the May town meeting. We've done that
There's still
before.
money in the legal budget, so I mean, it could
Oh, there
very well
is.
make it to May.
Okay,
If
how
not,
much
you
do
can
we
go-
have in the legal budget?
I think it started with 75. I'm not quite sure what we expended to date. I don't think there's anything extraordinary that we've expended to date.
So you might have 50 in there?
Yeah.
Okay. So how do people feel? Do they want us to go to 150 now or stay at 100?
Split the difference.
Yeah, 125, I think.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, I
reasonable.
think
So,
125 sounds good.
Article 10 amended to 125, is that a motion?
There is a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, yep.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor at 125? Okay. Article 11, and that is the municipal grant, 45,000. Are we still at 45?
Last I spoke to the chief, that was the amount and that was late last week. That was still live.
Okay,
Motion to approve Article 11.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Article 12, 140,000 for the for forestry account.
My only comment on that is you need to double it. That's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah.
We're kidding ourselves. kidding ourselves. 140,000 is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, that's all we get, that's all we got, Richard.
Right, I mean,
Okay,
Martinelli, tell
well, it's
me.
not all we got. We just had the other one here, where we refused to use tax dollars. Now, this is an absolute need in our community. We got trees falling on houses, and you know it. We said it 7 years ago. We
But this
got
isn't gonna deal
millions.
with the trees falling on houses.
It
Those
is.
are private, those are on private property. Now, we have one.
No, we're talking about the ones that are in the
Tree
street
belt.
belt that fell over. Come on. We got millions of dollars worth of deficiencies. Why are we kidding ourselves?
I think we need to also start a program if you,
Just gotta triage it. We don't have unlimited
what do you
funds.
call it?
140 is a drop in the bucket.
Is there a motion
I
for the
move we approve the
$140,000?
$140,000.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I'm devil's advocate. This is not right.
Well, I think we do need to figure out how we're going to start
Well, I think the
funding
public
this.
ought to be listening to this and come in here and start raising hell.
But, understand, he started with 175, so, I mean, this isn't just 100, he
Yeah.
has 300 and some odd
Paul,
plus.
it's millions of dollars.
No,
worth of needs.
I just wanted the facts out there, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the contracts, you know what they're costing us?
No, again, I mean,
Yeah,
just
that's
looking
another
at
thing
the,
we can look at.
at
I
the
mean,
storms.
Bring Dave, bring him in here and let him tell you about the backlog he's got right now.
All right, all those in favor of Article 12?
Be great.
Article 13, $25,000 for planting. So we're at least going in the right direction. Yeah, what was it that, we at a conference Tom and I were at, they just said something like 10% of our trees in the northeast, in New England, are disappearing because we're cutting more than we're planting. And here we have 140 we just spent on cutting, 25 for planting. So is there a motion for planting?
That's not a fair analysis, though. It costs you $2,000 to remove one and $50 to plant one. Come on,
No, it's
Marie.
more than 50 to
Okay,
plant
It's
them.
give it
125.
It's 246 trees.
Yeah, 246 trees and whatever. That's not a good analogy.
246 trees were lost to storms, and 140 were expected to be planted.
That was just the last microburst, right?
No, 2019, so we're
I move
behind.
we approve Article 13.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay. Article 14.
Article 14 is gonna have to be reduced by that 25,000 that you put into legal, so it's 87,800.
Okay, with the amended amount on Article 14, a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a
Article
second?
14.
Second?
Okay, discussion, all those in
Was
favor?
that Article 14?
It's the free cash,
Yeah,
operating
yeah,
stabilization.
Operation stabilization. Okay, this is really good. Where did we take the money from?
Free
It's
cash.
left over.
We took it out of OPEB, didn't we?
No, we took it out of
Yeah.
free cash.
Certified free cash.
I thought we took it out of OPEB.
No,
All free
Okay,
cash
well, we
amounts
sliced the
is
OPEB into something else.
500,000.
that's for next
Yeah,
year.
it's for FY '21.
Yeah.
That's not this year. This year it's still
You
getting,
know,
it got paid.
We don't make sense sometimes.
No, we don't.
We don't.
Okay, okay, here's the big one. Okay, here's the DPW. This is why Mary Beth stayed up
Mary Beth.
late.
That's why I came here.
Did we
the-
vote on 14?
Yes, we did.
Okay, all right.
We voted on 14.
I
We
mean,
didn't vote on 14.
I don't think we did.
Okay,
Yeah, we
all
did.
those in favor of Article 14?
We didn't vote.
Yeah. Article 15,
Let's start.
the building committee recommended that we go for 1.1. I'm a little nervous, that might be low. Mary Beth, you might want extra 100,000 in there, or
No,
what
I
do you
want,
feel?
to be perfectly honest, the building committee met last Wednesday night. We discussed this at length. I was an advocate and remain an advocate for 1.3 million. But the building committee voted unanimously for 1.1 million. I think that there's some hesitancy on the part of some of the people who sit on the committee of asking the town for too much money. My position is, we can't ask them for enough on this project. No, joking.
Can I just ask, how much money have we been authorized to spend on this
Yeah,
so far?
the town authorized on May 10th.
21,202,205.
21,205. The bond premium, adding the bond premium of 1.345 that was approved on October 16th of 2018, gives us a total amount of funds to be used of $22,550,000. As of last Wednesday, our anticipated cost for the projects is about 19.5, plus the cost of the land brings you up to about 22.1 million. In addition to that, however, we have now on the table $600,000 of known shortages of additional asbestos remediation work that has to be done. That's done basically in two pieces, one at $400 and the other is a guess at around $200,000. And my personal opinion is that we need to refund, or close to refund, the entire contingency. I'm calling it almost like a hazmat contingency. Plus, you know, we spend money easily, $40,000 we just allocated for clerk of the works. I think we should be at 1.3 or 1.4. That's my personal opinion. The committee does not agree with that, and they voted for 1.1 million.
Jay, where do you feel?
I think there are still costs to be done. I think that you are in a situation where, with the recent, everywhere they turn, they have found it. You are in the midst of working with DEP for a new, for approval that's going to impact on the site and the removal of it. And those are numbers that are not well known right now. When I talk to Colliers, they throw out a number of ballpark 100,000 more, but that is a number that they are grabbing and could be impacted as other discoveries is made as we work our way to the final, work our way.
What concerns me, frankly, is that we do have to trench around the entire perimeter of the property for the exterior lighting, and that's a long trench, very long trench. Although it's not wide, we still have to go, we have to dig. And it appears as though every time we put a shovel in the ground over there, we're finding things we don't want to find.
I do think, too.
I hate to say it, but I almost don't know. It's almost like throwing a dart. I think we need to be at more than, I personally think we need to be at more than 1.1, and I hate to be speaking against the entire committee, but I do think you need to consider a higher number.
I think one of the things to keep in mind, too, is it's interesting when you're on site and you look that it's not as if there is this huge concentration of asbestos sitting there underground and just as they suddenly hit the mother lode and here it goes. It is a sprinkling in intermittent areas. You know, they'll dig and they'll look suddenly and the rain will come or something and suddenly they can see specks of it as they work their way through, which makes it a soil that needs to be addressed. It's not as if, just for clarification for people, it's not as if it's sitting there in these piles and it's just people are going. It happens when they're doing trenches. They hit to some soil where 3 feet before they didn't hit anything. They suddenly hit it and suddenly they find these specks throughout. They have to then dig around to make sure they pick the circumference of it. And they have to notify DEP. And then DEP has to come out. I think DEP's at the point where they just want a final plan because their mileage, probably they can't afford it. But just to clarify, it's not as if it is just like a bunch of asbestos sitting there. It is just, in so many ways, just sprinkled throughout the soil. And it just, if you hit it a certain spot where they're digging, trenching, or they're digging for pylons, that's what they're getting. They might not get anything for 3 or 4 pylons, and suddenly they'll get something. So,
Paul, what do you think?
I would probably have to go with Mary Beth's gut feeling that 1.1 is probably cutting it short, and I'd hate to have to go back to town meeting and ask them for additional funds for the umpteenth time.
So where do you think the number should be?
I would be happy to go with Mary Beth's recommendation of the 1.3.
Mark?
Yeah, just doing the quick math. So we've got, Mary Beth, as of last Wednesday, you said the anticipated total cost is $19.5 million.
Yes.
That's all the change orders, that's all everything that's been approved to date, right? And there's zero.
And there's a few placeholders in there.
And there's a few, but there's zero contingency in that.
That is correct.
We've used the total contingency money. Okay, so you add to that the 2.6 million for the property, and it's 22.1 million. So 22.1 million is the currently estimated cost of the project. If everything went perfect from this point on, and we've been authorized to borrow 22.5 million.
Correct.
So the difference is we've got $400,000, quote unquote, in the bank of borrowing capacity. So what we're saying is we anticipate another $1.5 to $1.7 million in costs that will use up both this, what I called $400,000 in the bank, plus the additional whatever we borrow now? Am I,
The only thing I would say
Looking
is
at
the
that,
19.5 that Colliers came up with, I believe, is an agreement with Paul's number, including the numbers that he has for COs. And it includes the placeholders for anticipated expenditures. So, for example, the delay claim amounts are in that 19.5. But that's assuming that, that those numbers were meshed appropriately by Colliers.
No,
And it's
but-
not,
but-
it's not an agreement yet with
No.
regards to.
No, I understand that, but
Right.
what I'm saying is that we anticipate above that 19.5, another $1.5 million
Yes,
of costs.
Yes.
And I guess the question,
Well-
the follow-up question is, where? To what,
Standard contingency.
well,
It's
again, I'll
just
say,
starting construction.
let me just say, 600 of that is already, we know we're going to have to spend approximately. 400 on one asbestos area, and they're expecting at the northeast portion of the site, there is a structure there that they're going to have to dig around, and if they have the same experience there that they had around other structures that they had to dig around that had been put in by the prior owner, they are going to find asbestos there. They know that.
Well, and
So
you're
we're
just
expecting
you're-
that to run about 200. So we're kind of, we kind of think that there's $600,000 out there of anticipated costs that are not included in this 19.5.
And you're just
Okay,
starting
that-
actual
that-
construction,
I'm-
too.
I'm-
Pardon?
You're just actually starting.
And we are just
yeah.
starting
Okay,
construction.
I'm not
Right.
questioning, I'm
Right.
just trying to get the
Yeah.
sense of.
Right, no, I know.
Develop, is it
Yes.
1.1 or is it
Yes.
1.3? You know,
Right.
and it's,
I think we're safer
$200,000
at
is real money.
1.3 than we are at 1.1,
well.
And it doesn't mean we spend it if we don't.
No.
and we just spent 40, so, it doesn't take long to add up. If you kind of think of the very originally, it cost us $350,000, I think it was for the first change order, if you remember, on the asbestos, where we had these stockpiles. Do you remember the stockpiles around the site? To remove 5 stockpiles, and not big, it cost $350,000. Then go to the 1.7 million to haul this stuff down to the DPW, to the landfill.
Right.
The asbestos removal is extremely expensive, and it's all a surprise every time we dig.
And you still have that issue is going to be there as part of the final with
Yes.
regards to the site, so.
So so we're talking about if we take the 1.3 and we don't spend it, it's just giving us that space in case we need
It
it.
would give you that space, and then it could be reappropriated to another project.
Place a motion on the table that we change the total to 1.3 on Article 15.
Is there a second? No second?
I'll second it.
All right, further discussion?
Well, as has already been stated.
Yeah.
If it's not spent, it's not spent,
Mhm.
period. And the contract is, all change orders are being run through proper channels. The estimates are being scrutinized likely more than any other job the town has ever had at this point. So I feel fairly comfortable. They're doing the best they can do with a really bad situation.
And we got the clerk of the works now.
And you got a clerk of the works now, but it's, we were dealt a bad deck of cards on this, with this asbestos.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
I agree. I don't think it's a poorly managed project in many respects at this point. I think it's very, very well overseen, but the site is tough.
You strip the asbestos out, and we're right back in full budget.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
nobody's
There's no
looking for
doubt.
anybody. Nobody's looking for.
Everything could be green lights.
That's correct.
Of all the money that was used from contingency, there may be $100,000, $200,000 were used for allocations that were not asbestos related.
Unforeseen site conditions.
Unforeseen,
Right.
yeah.
The embankment,
The
basically.
embankment.
The
Right.
embankment, the flooding and all
Right,
that, yeah.
right. very little of the funds that have been expended that are over and above the budget, or let's say are in the contingency, were spent on anything other than asbestos.
Even when you get the question with regards
Minute
to
amount.
delay, it's all related to the
Right.
same
It was all
issue.
asbestos.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Any
mean, I
further-
hate to, maybe this isn't appropriate to ask this question, but what if this doesn't pass?
Stops the project.
Yeah.
Stop
Oh,
the project.
that's a great, legit, I think you'd have to revise your budget, and you'd have to take a look at where you get to a certain point with regards to this project, and then be ready to button it up for whatever at that point. I mean, you've got to revise the entire budget, but that problem is, all the engineering work and everything is conditional on what we see here, so, yeah.
Yeah. they're
No, it's a
gonna
great,
shut
it's a
it
fair
down,
question.
And it will cost money to reopen
Oh,
it, and the costs are gonna.
I
keep
can't
going up.
imagine what that cost would
Can't
be.
even imagine.
Plus, you
Can't
can't
imagine.
imagine what the contractors themselves or everybody else who has contracts ready to go, how well they're going to take it with
Well, you know,
regards to it, too.
we can't overemphasize the fact that this contract has ran extremely smooth except for the asbestos.
Right.
And nobody knew it was there.
Well, it ran smooth because they haven't done anything yet. I
Well,
mean,
Mark, but they
We
haven't.
haven't built the
but
building yet.
Money is being spent on asbestos.
I understand that, I guess.
It's not mismanagement, it's not bad contract, it's not bad specifications.
But there's always a thought that says, if we had known then what we know now, when we had just thrown up our hands and said, let's everybody go home and
Well, if we'd have
move
built
on.
it, where we wanted to build it, we wouldn't be having this problem.
I don't know, this is where I want to build it, I don't know where you want to build it.
The committee recommended Wolf Swamp Field. We were forced to go to that complex by a town vote, so that was a force. That wasn't the option.
All right, so,
And your option would have had the same asbestos deal. My
okay,
option
we're
would have been
moving
clean
beyond
soil.
we're moving to beyond the motion here, okay? So, any more discussion on the motion at 1.3? All those in favor? Okay. All right, moving on to thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's late, I know.
16?
Number 16 on the Tina Lane, authorized to borrow $2 million for Tina Lane. Is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in-
Just to say, this is the second phase of the project.
Right.
That is a blocked number from Ty and Bond. We will have to be negotiating with DEP on the actual work product over the winter.
What do we do if this is not approved?
DEP, I think at that point, would probably come
Go to
flying
court
back
order.
at you and be challenging you in court to comply.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be prepared to address that. at
Oh, yeah,
town
no, that's
meeting.
fine, that's fine, absolutely.
Because This one has legal actions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, all those in favor? On number 16, transfer from water retained
17.
earnings.
17.
Oh, 17.
Yeah.
236,000.
I just want to add that I need to delete at the end of line 2, and related bond costs to be paid, first instance from water receipts. Originally, I had this as a bond authorization. I changed it, and I just did not delete that part of it.
Okay, so look for the change in Article 17.
Maybe we should-
And it's got to be pointed out to finance.
I don't think it'll make it, again, it was, to them, it was water retained earnings. That other statement is irrelevant. I don't think it's going to have any bearing. I mean, I can bring it to their attention, but I don't, it's not relevant.
So I want to step back, Maria, I know everyone wants to get through this, but I went back and looked at because I was looking at some financing stuff for the DPW. The DPW project originally was financed partially from water and sewer. None of these excesses and overrides are being allocated proportionally, that same proportion to water and sewer. And the question is, I mean, because it's so complicated to do it, but we really ought to, if we were being honest with ourselves and saying they ought to continue to pay. And Paul, I remember the spreadsheet you did, which had a pretty detailed allocation of the.
Yeah, it has the percentages. You guys voted on the percentages.
Right. And we haven't followed that at all. And I'm just wondering if we ought not do that.
We haven't, this would be the first one that really wouldn't be followed, because I think the bond premiums were it came from
Oh, okay.
multiple sources. So this would be the first one. I honestly had forgotten about that till probably like about 6:30 when we were talking. Yeah, I don't know what else to tell you on it.
Should we save the next overrun?
I would probably save it for the next
exactly.
override to come from water and sewer.
And then we'll really get yelled at. All right, so there was a motion on the floor.
Yeah, but I said it before we said what it was for, to replace the water mains on Fairview Street.
Yes.
And second,
All those in favor? Article 18, this is interesting. It's taking the CPC money that was going to go to the Ring Road and fix the irrigation improvements in Glenbrook.
Did the CPC do this? Do they even know it's happening?
Well, I think
This-
it's got to
this-
go back to CPC.
It's gonna have to go
if
back to
this
them.
does.
This happened like last Thursday.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
And I did not contact Stephen Weiss, but it actually should go to them for, I don't know if it has to by law, quite honestly, but it should go to them for their 2 cents worth.
So if they disapprove it, we'll just have to withdraw it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be the best thing to do.
I just think it's presumptuous of us to move CPC money around.
We have no authority.
What?
We don't have the authority.
That's why the
Oh,
town.
we don't, but the town.
Town floor does.
But, I mean, it sounds like this was initiated by the softball group that's working on Glenbrook School based on the emails I saw. You know, and first of all, is there money in the, I'm taking $50,000 out of the Wolf Swamp Field ring
Yeah,
road? We're not building a ring road.
Right, we're not building a ring road.
But I thought that money was going to the other Wolf Swamp Road Field project.
It would have to be reallocated anyways. So, and I think they voted the full amount for Wolf Swamp Field. They voted the 1.5, which was the total estimate. So all the money that was part of community preservation was kind of frosting on the cake.
I think this is a little,
I-
this and the level, and the one below it is a little.
Yeah, I state my same opposition. There's been nothing supplied to this board to even come
I
close.
mean, the question is anything gonna be done
There-
now anyway? Or is this just gonna be waited till the spring anyway, and we should just let the CPAC take care of it themselves in the spring?
Going into winter, they're not gonna do anything.
Well, there was a written, what do you call it, quotation, and it was a rounded figure of 50.
Yeah, but that wasn't by, who wrote the quotation?
The company, one of the companies that
You
came
can't,
in.
you can't bid a job at $50,000 without a detailed analysis of what's wrong, and you get a cost estimate. Come on, that's a wag. And you know what a wag is.
All right, I think it's got to be done if we're going to be able to move things along.
The
So
work won't be done this year?
it's going to be done in the spring. If we don't get this going by March or April, they were never going to be ready.
Well, my God, they haven't had
Wait till May.
irrigation for how many years on that field?
Yeah, but we're going to lose Wolf Swamp Field.
Oh, no, you're not using Wolf Swamp Field. This has nothing to do with Wolf Swamp Field.
Yeah, because you're going to lose Wolf Swamp Field if we're going
There's
to
2
start the
baseball
work.
fields at Wolf Swamp, and we lost the 2 at Glenbrook.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't need the irrigation system at Glenbrook to
The
start.
fields are terrible. Have you been over there?
Yes, I've lived there.
Then-
Yes, I've been there many times.
Then they
What I
need
said
irrigation.
before, we don't know how many years it's not even been working. This all of a sudden's an emergency. There's never been an emergency. Our kids have been playing there for
No, they
years and
haven't.
years. Yes, they have. There's games there every
They've been
day.
No, there's not.
Come on,
Where?
Mark.
What field are we talking about?
We're talking about Glenbrook Field.
No, there's not.
Yes,
There's youth soccer, you're talking about baseball. We're talking about baseball.
this is about baseball.
It's actually girls softball that plays
Yeah.
at Glenbrook. I mean, I live 3 houses down. They park in
They're
front of my
up
They
there
house.
don't
Fine.
play baseball. We lost 2 baseball fields at Greenwood. We're losing 2 baseball fields.
well, make
at
up your
Wolf Swamp.
mind. You were talking.
No, I wasn't. You were. I'm talking about baseball.
Yeah.
We're losing 4 baseball fields.
Why spend $50,000 on an irrigation system that's not working right now?
This was recommended by the Parks and Rec
I
as their
don't care
top
who
priority.
recommended it. We're the select board. We're supposed to make rational sense out of this stuff.
Is
The
that-
point is, we have town assets. If a building needs a new roof, are we not gonna repair the
That
roof?
roof is different than irrigation system.
How is this?
Mark.
How?
Oh, well, come on, Mark. You said you're a lawyer. You should be smarter.
Well,
Yeah,
okay.
we have people who use the fields.
Yeah?
I've said this
They
before.
use the field now.
It's not playable, it's not safe.
The water's
We
not
have-
gonna make it playable, Mark.
Not water
The
by
renovations
itself.
that are being done on
Water.
Wolf Swamp Field is gonna make it safe.
But they're
At
going
Wolf
to.
Swamp, yes.
Yes,
But
no
as you see,
disagreement.
the next article is going to take care of renovation of it, but we need to get the irrigation fixed first. Is there a motion, anyone agrees to Article 18 with a motion?
Well, do we need,
Wait.
would we need a letter? How about if we just got a letter from the
No, we need to get
CPA?
this on the warrant.
Well, can we
it has to
put it
be
in 2
voted.
weeks?
No, the warrant's being posted tomorrow. This is our last day.
This is the last time.
This is our last day.
We've seen this before.
And,
Is there a motion for Article 18?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve Article 18.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? I went and asked Parks and Rec, what do you need to get through this transition? And they said, number one, Glenbrook's got to be done. So that's why I brought it, and I was going
Not been
to,
before this board.
and it was going to be $50,000 out of free cash. And then the idea came up with the CPC money sitting there, so I thought this was a brilliant idea.
I'm saying they've not been before this board explaining this in detail, so we could
No.
all have a chance to question them, so. And the fact is, this is CPC money. We're not authorized to do this.
No, we have to pull it off if CPC doesn't agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, Article 19, it's again CPC money to take care of the other ball fields. Is there a motion on the floor?
Who was it submitted by?
This was again, Parks and Recs was saying this is what they needed to get these fields going.
I mean, I don't understand how Parks and Recs has the audacity, and pardon me, Parks and Rec Committee, to reallocate money from the community preservation, which is, I mean, every time we try to do something, all Stephen Weiss tells us is it's so regulated by the state and the community preservation and this and that. And all of a sudden, we're sitting here saying, let's put this on the board and say what we're gonna do because the Parks and Rec Committee wants to do it. I mean, it's like, whose money is this? It's town
Well,
money.
the Parks and Rec is gonna decide whether this is gonna be withdrawn or not. We can't make
No.
that decision.
What is going on? This money was appropriated by a town vote for Wolf Swamp Fields.
Yeah.
What are you coming back and now slicing it off to other obligations? I don't understand the notion, Marie. I'm sorry, this is crazy.
Well, because the town voted to bond the full amount of Wolf Swamp Field, so
That's
now there's an
right.
extra
But
$71,000 sitting there.
this is insane. You got, what, 70 here and you want 50 on that? That's $120,000. This is absolutely insane.
And you're gonna need more than that.
I don't care, they're separate projects. Take them to town meeting and get them approved on their own merits.
As a practical matter, this has to be posted tomorrow. So,
As a practical matter, it shouldn't even be on the warrant.
well,
This is, it's crazy, it's crazy.
I don't know why you're having such a visceral reaction.
Because I've been on the board for 8 years and we fight for these projects, we bring them forth. We don't get appropriation made and then start slicing it out next year for other little pet projects. And that's what we've done. And worst case here, this is not even our money, this is community preservation money.
Well, CBC says no, then it's no. Right?
It's not the way to do business. It's never been done this way before.
So just as a point of order, 2 or 3 years ago, I led a charge here to not vote for a CPA project.
Yeah.
And very much got our hands slapped and got told, you shall never do that again because CPA money is controlled only by the CPA, and nobody else has the right to put their things on the warrant or take their things off the warrant. And I seriously believe Steve Weiss, who's the chair of the CPA, is gonna come back and say, as much as we support this, this is the wrong process for doing it.
Well,
And-
go ahead, sorry.
No, I just, and maybe it's not our role then to play cop, let him play his own cop, but, we're voting to put it on the warrant. The warrant's gonna be published, and then they're gonna come back and say, what, withdraw it on town meeting floor? Is that the route we're gonna take when they say you can't do this?
This was a timing issue.
Yeah.
So all these meetings happened in the past few weeks. There was not enough time to go to CPA before this process. So that's why this happened. And if CPC says no, then it's no. The problem is, you can't wait until the May town meeting because baseball's played in the spring and you need to do whatever, preparation.
I follow you, Mark. The problem is, the date of this town meeting was set in June. It's not like the town meeting snuck up on us. We just, like everything else, we got 2 or 3, citizens petitions last week.
Yeah.
I mean, the issue, and here we are, it's gotta be posted tomorrow, and we're talking about these and still adjusting the numbers. I mean, we just do a terrible job of seeing that, hey, the town meeting's coming up, let's prepare for this thing. I just feel very reluctant when I have this gut feeling we shouldn't and can't be doing this, to say, well, let's do it and see what happens. If we believe we can't do it based on the history of having done it improperly and gotten slapped for it in the past, why are we doing this
Well,
again?
we're gonna
And-
find out. One of us, some of us are gonna get mud in our faces, and we'll find
this
out
is just-
in the next couple of
But,
days.
but the point, Maria, is, I mean, do we really think that between now and May 15th, there's gonna be work done on these two projects?
There has to be.
By who? By who, though?
There's no
We don't have the
contract.
resource.
They're
What?
gonna bid it, of course.
Oh, they're gonna bid it. So they don't have a bid? So what, are you guessing again? Come on, Mark, this is a guess. That's all this is. There's nothing to support any of this. It's garbage warrant articles. You don't have a bid. You have no idea what it's
Motion
gonna
to
cost.
approve Article 19.
Is
Yeah,
there,
no, it's under discussion.
no, we have to put it on the floor, and then we can continue discussion.
Yeah, well, you don't even
Yeah.
have a bid. Who sponsored this?
Parks and Rec.
Yeah, what's the town manager know about this?
I don't know anything about this article.
Mm-hmm.
I do not.
Wow, a department that works under town manager doesn't know anything about it. I suspect there's a reason you don't know anything about it.
Paul,
second the
did you
motion.
talk to
I'm gonna do that.
Barry?
Yes, Barry helped write the explanations for these.
And why did this just, nobody's been before us? This warrant article just shows up as a mystic thing?
You are putting me in the middle of a tug of war, and I'll let you guys fight it out.
Rich, the issue is that the sports teams have been meeting with the Park and Rec Department
Yeah.
about, and the initiation, and Mark, you can probably clarify this. The initiation was town meeting voting that says, we insist on 2 baseball fields at Wolf Swamp Road, okay? And the group that wanted to renovate Wolf Swamp Road said, okay, now we gotta go in there and figure out a way to put baseball fields on it. And the answer is, there is no way to put baseball fields on there and still give it the flexibility of having lacrosse and
Wow.
soccer and all this other stuff year-round. So we've gotta be able to move
No, there's
baseball
still,
fields,
baseball
no.
fields are still
But
staying
we
there.
gotta,
Yeah.
Marie, the next step is move baseball fields
No.
elsewhere, and then go back to town meeting in the spring and say, we wanna rescind the requirement
No,
of baseball fields.
That's not on the table.
Marie, I'm telling you, that's the
Yeah.
process here.
No, I've been at the last meetings, and that's not the process. They're not getting rid of it.
Then if that's
Yeah.
not the process, then
Yeah.
why do we need baseball fields so quickly?
Because,
I mean, we've always needed these baseball fields.
so,
2 baseball fields.
so the drawings that we have, or that they have, show 2 baseball fields, but they're really close to the other fields, and you wouldn't be able to play on them until, I think, June 1st. And even if you could play on them, you cannot play on them for 3 years. So once the construction of the fields begins, these fields are not playable for 3 years.
I thought it was 2 years.
Whatever it is, Richard.
Yeah, it's 2. Don't stretch it to 3, please.
So for the next 2 years, you have no baseball fields at Wolf Swamp, you have no baseball fields at Greenwood.
And this part was brought out, Mark, in very heavy detail when the original item was brought up about Wolf Swamp Fields. Because that's why I voted against it, because I said, you people do not have a plan.
This is a
Now it's
plan.
becoming very, no, this was not
It's late.
even.
It's a
this-
late plan, but
Oh.
this is a plan.
I'm trying to be as gentle as I
Oh,
can.
please, I would love, don't be gentle on me. Don't be gentle on me. please.
We're on camera, I can't really tell you
No,
what I
please,
really
please,
want to
I
tell
would
you.
love for you to be
But
not
this,
gentle on me.
this is why we voted against it, because they didn't have a plan.
We have a plan
This
now.
is still not a plan. You don't have any
It's
cost
the
estimates
beginnings
with
of a
anything.
plan.
Oh, it's the beginning of a hypothetical dump of money.
There's no
You don't
hypothetical.
have plans for anything.
We've been meeting with the park
By the
board.
way, why, you seem to be very close to this issue.
Well, no,
Because
he was put on the
I'm
committee.
the liaison for the
Yes,
select board.
he's the
well-
liaison.
Oh, okay, you're sponsoring this warrant?
I'm not gonna talk Yiddish with you, all right? You know,
It's not Yiddish, I think it's American.
Gibberish.
Okay,
sorry.
so we
Gibberish.
now, okay, so the motion is on the floor for approval of 19. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, number 20, this is in regards to revoke this nightmare
No.
scenario.
Continued nightmare.
Okay, so is there a motion
Just
to
another
approve
one.
fixing the register of war?
The only question is it gonna fix it?
Yeah, well, then we gotta go to, then it has to go to Beacon Hill. It has to be a petition in Beacon Hill.
Right, so the statute requires, as I understand it, that once this town accepts a state act, that they cannot revoke the acceptance of a state act for 3 years. The intent here, the former Board of Registrars, who evidently have become the Election Commission, feel that the amount of work that they anticipate would be required here as the election commission is far in excess of what they understood before, because with the creation of the election commission, there is an impact, a perceived impact on the town clerk's role relative to the elections, which means, therefore, the concern of the members is that, and I think it's noted in the explanation, that there is a good deal more work than what they envisioned to be without the presence of the town clerk, and that the $300 annual stipend is not nearly anything close to what they anticipated. So what they're supportive of is the concept of going to the, asking that the town meeting approve a home rule petition to go to the legislature to ask the legislature to allow Long Meadow to revoke, rescind its prior approval of the election commission and return it back to the three-member board of registrars.
So is there a motion to approve it?
Yes, so moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Aye.
Just in the spirit of transparency, there is another issue that I'll present to you in the future meeting, which is that...
Future meeting.
A future meeting, yes. Well, I can emphasize that and leave it, you
pull a
hanging on
Stephen
that, or I can just give you a quick...
Pulling a Steve Crane
Catherine
here.
Ingram is got, just leave her where she is.
Well, that's the discussion with regards to where we are on this.
She's
So
a registrar.
I'll update you on that. But in this context here, and the remaining members of the board registrars, I'm told, are all in favor of this act. So.
Okay. All
So
those in
I
favor?
guess- Well, I just want to ask one question. Yeah, what if we just gave them $600? Would they?
No, I think it really goes
No,
more to the
no
role
amount
of
of
the
money.
clerk and the amount of work that's envisioned for the, that's there. And
the election,
right now, under the Board of
yearly-
registrars, the town clerk has a very substantive role. Under the election commission scenario, it is a four-member election commission
right.
and no specific role with regards to the town clerk. And I think that is a great concern. I think they believed what they were getting was simply a fourth member to the board, but in truth, it alters the relationship between the clerk and the role of the clerk and the members who are on the registrars or the Board of Election
Yeah.
Commission.
And I think when we voted on this, we didn't have a clue that was going to happen.
Okay, all right, so let's move
Okay.
on. All those in favor? Okay, the voting one,
Opposed?
is a motion for 21?
I move that we approve,
Richard didn't vote.
no, Richard,
you vote?
how are you voting on the registry?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
How about the,
I'll move we approve the change of hours of the local
is there a second?
elections.
Second?
All those in favor? A water service, Mark, put the motion on.
Yeah, I move we approve the revision to the bylaws for water service fees.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, Historic District
Racing
Commission?
now, aren't
Oh, yeah, I was supposed to be done by 9.
So the issue on the issue on this one is that the good news is town meeting passed it. The bad news is the Historic District Commission did not provide a written recommendation to town meeting prior to the vote, which is a requirement in the AG sent it back. This might have to be postponed or moved off because I did talk to the chairman and he was not sure whether or not the committee would be able to get a quorum in time for the meeting. And
So why don't you just delete it then? I mean,
Okay.
when I talked to the chairman, I will say the chairman was amenable to the idea of deleting it. He said he would try to get back to me by Friday of last week with regards to whether he thought they could get a quorum.
Okay, we're done then.
Okay, it's up.
Deleted, he never got back to you.
It's up.
Paul, don't kill me, let's just delete 24. I can't deal
No,
with it.
23.
23?
And 24.
23, 24 is
23.
toxic.
Oh, 24. Oh,
And 24.
24 is out. Okay.
Yeah, 24's out.
Okay.
Why?
Because nothing is moving fast in regards to that, and I don't think I put in your
Yeah, you didn't put in
request-
the, you didn't
your
put in the.
request changes, and so
Requested
I can't,
changes. I was gonna say
yeah,
that.
sorry. So, Mark,
Right.
Paul, thank you for your
But we should recycle, but if you want to recycle it till, I mean, now we've got it ready,
Oh, we'll
just
do
stick
it
it in for the
May.
May.
Yeah, we'll work on it to May, and we'll let Lynn deal with it.
Paul, I mean, I can send you the.
No, I have the bylaw that, where it came from, the
No,
original.
no, but
He made some
I read through it
changes.
and checked with other people. We made some local
Oh, okay.
adjustments. That was.
If you want to send it
Those
to
didn't
Deb
get
and
it.
myself,
Okay, sorry.
Deb and myself.
We'll let Lynn do it, okay? All right, so that's it, we're done.
You got 3 petitioned articles, and you
Well,
have
we
to
don't
accept them. They're on, yes.
We're just
They're
accepting
there.
them because we don't do
Yep.
anything with them.
Not a problem.
All right, so is there a motion to
No.
accept the citizens petitions as
No,
part of the
we don't
warrant?
need to.
We don't need to?
I just
Okay.
move we accept the warrant as a whole.
As amended.
And close it.
And
Yep.
close it. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, all those in favor? All right, there's something you have to sign here, but what I don't understand is what's this here about reporting requirements that we have to sign? I don't know what this is.
I don't know.
It's Columbia Gas
Let Jackie look at it. She knows.
saying that we need to,
Paul, what was this?
shall point of, this is for the moratorium. Okay, I think the moratorium is
Both went on.
required that with these
this
new
goes with the,
reporting people, because right now Columbia Gas
the other file for
has
the bonds.
people on it that they're reporting to that no longer work for the town.
Oh, it's probably an update? Is that what they're looking
So we're
at?
sending them a request
Yeah.
that they report to these people in regards to the reporting requirements. So I'm passing this around, and
I think it's a contact list to notify.
it's a contact list.
From Columbia Gas, who they're contacting.
No,
Oh,
that
so-
we're
yeah,
asking
And
Columbia
and
Gas.
we,
Yeah.
and we have to sign the letter to tell them who their contact was?
Yes, because this is part of the moratorium that's saying this is what we're expecting you guys to do. And I guess they're asking us to sign it. So please sign it. All right, and I think that's it. Anything else anyone wants to bring up? It's been a terribly long meeting. I apologize.
Great, this isn't a long meeting when you really think about it.
I started at 6.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
No,
Yes.
let's go on to midnight.
Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, all those in favor?
I gotta sign that.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. I'm sorry you're going home so
No,
late.
no, no, it's fine. No, no, tonight's a Red Roof evening.
Oh,
It
well, we
doesn't get
could
any
have gone
better.
longer.
And maybe a special, Denny's is open all night, so I
Wow,
say,
you're living big, man.
I'm going, baby.
Anybody who hasn't signed these letters, there's only a couple
Yeah, I just said it that way, so they gotta go
You're a
back
state
this way.
employee, you're supposed to
Mark and Tom.
go to
This
hotels
goes
in
to
the
you
state.
guys.
I'm not a stadium.
Mark.
It's the same letter?
Yeah, I think it's the same letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same
And
letter.
then it's a town.
I think it's important, what I'm doing is supporting the regional economy.
This is an extra one of these. Does anyone want?
I gotta sign that.
Those are great, by the way. That's an outstanding job on
Yeah,
that budget. That
very
is
good
one of the
job.
best I've ever seen.
Wow.
Oh, this is.
Absolutely.
You don't want to above it, because you gotta pay.
I'll give
keeping
this,
it all.
Debbie wants her folder back, I guess.
Oh, my God, yes.
When's your last day, Jackie?
November